Welcome back to the channel. This is Trendy Storm and you are watching first part of What If Kid Naruto Befriended Kurama. If you enjoy this video, please like, share and subscribe to this channel. Now wasting no more time, let's start the story.
Despite all of the glares he was getting, 4-year-old Naruto Uzumaki continued to walk down the street. They only seemed to be encouraged by acknowledging the venom aimed at him. One of the first things he had learned in his life was that the ability to block out his surroundings. He was so out of touch with reality that it was too late before he heard or saw the cart that was headed his way. Naruto opened his eyes to the sharp odor of tobacco and disinfectant. He groaned and sat up, ignoring the searing pain in his right leg, and looked around. The Sandaime Hokage, Hiruzen Sarutobi, was sitting by his bed in a dull, dusty hospital room, smoking his pipe in a calm manner. He groaned again, took off the sheet that was over him, and examined his leg. His right leg was wrapped in thick bandages, just as the pain had suggested. With his eyes fixed on his injured limb, he whispered, "What happened, Gigi? Why am I in the hospital?" "Don't you remember, Naruto?" The young boy gave a headshake. "You were attacked. There was an attempt to run you over. Luckily for you, they botched it up. You only received a glancing blow. Your injuries are not too severe and you should recuperate quite soon. My men have apprehended the people responsible and I will be personally ensuring that they are thoroughly punished." Naruto nodded slowly as he took in the details. He grimaced and attempted to move his leg. Pain shot up from his leg in shooting tendrils to his head. "Don't get up. You need to rest. You're lucky to have no broken bones, but it's better if you don't move around too much." Naruto muttered an expletive. Even if he wanted to get up, he couldn't. His mind was hazy due to the pain he was experiencing. He moaned again and lay down again. He had no idea where he was going tonight. "Naruto, why were you roaming around so late at night when I have explicitly told you not to do so? You were supposed to be home with your caretaker." "She kicked me out." Out of the corner of Naruto's eye, he caught a glimpse of the old man's face, which was filled with barely contained rage. "What? Why did Minami-san do that? Weren't you two getting along well? You told me that she was much nicer than the previous two caretakers." "It was my fault. Not hers." "Why? What happened?" "I was playing in the house and I broke a vase. I tried to clean it up before Minami-san saw, but I cut the back of my hand on a piece of broken glass. There was some blood. Minami-san brought some bandages to tape it. But then she..." Naruto abruptly stopped speaking. After that, he didn't want to recall what had occurred. He didn't want to recall the terrified expression his caregiver had given him. A look of utter terror had appeared on her face after she had taken one look at his cut. He was referred to as a demon by her. She had yelled at him to get out and never return. It was painful. He was accustomed to strangers calling him a demon. However, it had hurt a lot coming from the kind Minami-san. Minami-san was an excellent chef. Compared to his prior caregivers, Minami-san was far kinder. It was Minami-san who had compared him to her own son. "Naruto, I know it is difficult, but you have to tell me what happened if you want me to help you." Still avoiding eye contact with the man he believed to be his grandfather, Naruto muttered, "I don't know. She just looked at my hand and began to scream. She called me a demon and told me leave." His eyes began to slowly leak a few drops of salty tears. Once again, Sarutobi could not think of anything to say. When he was interacting with Naruto, he discovered that this occurred frequently. He had only wanted to provide the boy with a happy upbringing. A childhood free from assassination attempts and hatred. At best, his life was going to be tough because of his burden. The unquestionable evidence that he had failed miserably at that was presented today. He was at a loss for what to do for the first time in his years as Hokage. He was at a loss for words to calm the boy's anxieties. As though he were holding his own son, he lifted the boy off the bed and gave him a tight hug. He gave the boy a calming back rub. "Naruto, don't worry. You're not a demon. Don't believe anything that woman said to you. You're a human just like I am. You're just like any other person in this village. What happened was not your fault. It's just that Minami-san couldn't understand how special you are. Gigi, please don't leave me like Minami-san and Aoi-san and Inoue-san did. Minami-san said that I had fooled you somehow. She said you would come to your senses one day and see what I really was. I swear, Gigi, I am not playing any trick on you. I swear. I would never do anything like that to you. Please don't leave me like the rest of them, please." The boy was sobbing and trembling. That woman was going to get flayed by him. How could she have said such hurtful things to a helpless boy? He was nearly broken by her. Gently, he lifted the boy's head by his chin and met his eyes. "Naruto, Believe me when I say this. I will never leave you. I know that you aren't playing any tricks on me. I know what kind of person you really are. I trust you. Don't worry. I swear that I will always be there for you." After freeing his head, Naruto buried his face in Sarutobi's chest and wept some more. It was the first time Sarutobi had witnessed the boy sobbing. "Gigi. Why does everyone hate me? Why do they keep trying to kill me? What did I ever do to them? How do I make them stop? Please tell me. I'll do anything and everything. Please tell me." Sarutobi gave the boy a closer embrace. "Naruto, I can't tell you the reason now. You are not ready for it yet, but you will be someday, and I promise to tell you then. However, listen to what I'm going to say to you now and never forget it. When you were born, you were chosen to be the hero who would protect this village. However, the villagers do not know that and they hate you for it. Instead of succumbing to your anger towards them, you have to overcome your hate. You must endure their anger and prove to them with your deeds that you truly are a hero. You must not give in to hate and lower yourself to their level because you are made of better material than them. You're better than them and I know it. Only if you work hard will you ever be respected by everyone. I know that it's not fair. I know that this path is very difficult, but that is why you were chosen. You're the only one who can do it. Because you are a hero. It's up to you if you want to go down the path chosen for you. Even if you don't understand what I just said, remember it. You will understand it one day, I promise you." On his lap, Sarutobi rocked the boy slowly. The boy's sobs eventually stopped. Naruto eventually managed to free himself and carefully climbed back onto his bed. After using the sheet to wipe his face, he began gazing out the window. Sarutobi sighed and stood up to go. "Naruto, you stay here for a while. I'll try and find a new caretaker for you as soon as I can. Someone more trustworthy than the previous 3. No, Gigi, don't bother. She'll also leave me as soon as she can. I don't need a caretaker anymore. I can take care of myself. Let me be. It's better like this. It's easier like this. I'm sick of the betrayals. I don't need any more of them." Once more, Sarutobi was at a loss for words. "Fine. I'll get you an apartment and open an account for you in the bank. Since your parents were shinobi, the village will give you a yearly grant. It's not much, but if you are smart then you will be able to get by easily." He left the boy to think about that, with a heavy heart. Naruto saw the man he thought was his grandfather leave his room. After the elderly man had departed, he focused on his window. Naruto pondered what the elderly man had told him while staring out of the window with unfocused eyes. Nothing he had said had made sense. What made someone like him a hero? What was the reason behind his initial selection? He lacked any unique abilities. None that he was aware of, anyway. And why hadn't he been given a say in the situation? It was a mystery. His life was like that. A total mystery. He had a lot of questions, but no one ever responded. Nobody. Not even the elderly man. He cared for him and was kind, but he never gave him what he truly wanted. He had a headache as a result of his racing thoughts and pounding leg. He reclined and allowed slumber to take over. He let out a sigh as the agony subsided and he fell into a deep sleep. He was floating in his dreams. Adrift in the ocean. A sea of red. "Boy, do not listen to the foolish ramblings of that old man. He does not understand your pain. I do. I know how it feels to be hated by everyone. Kill them. Kill all of them. Take out all your hatred on them. Use my power and end everything." With a start, Naruto opened his eyes. He was in a big room. A room that is dark. The floor was filled with dark, bubbling water, and the walls were lined with rusty, corrugated pipes. There was a big cage before him. It was big enough to house the whole Hokage building. It contained a huge, 9-tailed, red beast. Pure hatred radiated from the beast. And overwhelming strength. With its monstrous intent to kill, it pushed forward against the bars of his cage and pinned him down. Naruto's mind flashed with images of his imminent death. He could feel the rage of the caged animal seeping through his skin and into his bones. It was primordial. It was overwhelming and unthinkably powerful. He strained to stay upright, and his knees started to tremble. You are the Kyuubi. Be you. But you're supposed to be dead. The Yondaime Hokage killed you. There's a festival held every year for it. Where am I? What's going on? How did I get here? Is this a dream? Panicked Naruto. This is no dream. This is the realm inside you. This is your mind. Use my chakra. Use my power. Use it and kill all those who look down upon you. Only then shall you know peace. Naruto was startled awake and felt as though his stomach were on fire. Sarutobi sensed an aura as he neared the end of the hallway. He had last sensed this aura on the night of Naruto's birth, 4 years prior. On that night, his successor and his spouse gave their lives in order to save the village. He felt dread. Returning to Naruto's room, he shunshined. The boy, wearing a red chakra cloak, lay on the bed. His once cute whiskers had turned savage, similar to a fox's. He had fangs sticking out of his mouth. He was growing claws out of his nails. For a moment, Sarutobi stood in shock. Then he hurriedly made hand signs with both hands. His right hand's fingertips started to turn blue. Sarutobi thought, "Let's hope this works," and slammed his hand down on the boy's stomach. When Naruto woke up, he realized that his stomach felt like it had been struck by a stone. When he looked up, he saw the Jiji looking at him anxiously. "Naruto, what happened? Are you okay? How do you feel?" Naruto was perplexed. His thoughts were racing. He sat up slowly, breathing shakily. Was that dreaming? Was he experiencing hallucinations? However, it had seemed so genuine. Did he actually have the Kyuubi sealed inside of him? His mind raced with all the potential outcomes. He needed time to reflect. He glanced up at the elderly man and opened his mouth to say something, but was stopped. Before he could respond, 2 shinobi in uniform rushed through the door. At the same time, a masked Anbu agent appeared silently behind the Hokage, a hand on his tanto. Naruto gazed blankly at the intruders, his bewilderment increasing with each passing moment. The Anbu began in a modulated, toneless voice, "Hokage Sama, I fell," but was cut off before he could finish. Sarutobi glared at Naruto and said, "Yes, I understand how you felt, and it has been resolved. Go now, and don't mention this to anyone." The shinobi quietly and swiftly left the room as they had entered at the command of their commander. Sarutobi softly inquired, "Naruto, are you okay?" "I'm fine, Jiji. Just some sort of weird dream." "A dream? Indulge this old man and tell me about this dream of yours." Naruto made a false statement, "I don't remember anything." He could tell the old man didn't believe him when he said, "I can never remember my dreams." After a few moments of staring at him, the elderly man turned around. "Get some rest, Naruto. I will come back later to check on you." Thankful that he had not been asked a question, he watched the elderly man leave. If that had happened, he would have been in a difficult position. To be sure the old man was truly gone, he waited for a while. It had subsided to a mild throb in his leg. During his brief rest, he appeared to have recovered considerably. He got out of bed slowly and stood up carefully. When he placed his weight on his leg, it twinged and his stomach rolled with nausea, but both were tolerable. He had experienced physical pain before. He opened his room's window and crept out. With a menacing expression on his face, Sarutobi barged into his office and glared at the man who was waiting for him. He yelled, "Explain yourself," as loudly as he could. A silver-haired Anbu agent wearing a wolf mask was the target. As his leader charged at him, the man knelt down and stooped. "I gave you this responsibility because I trusted you. I had believed that you would protect your own sensei's son with your life. Yet, Naruto is in hospital now. Explain yourself," he yelled. Sarutobi's rage shook the room. "I'm sorry, Hokage Sama. He was in the market-place and I was consigned to the rooftops. I was too slow in noticing the attempt and too far away to stop it. I have failed Sensei and I have broken the trust you placed in me. I accept all responsibility for my actions and am ready for any punishment that you see fit to mete out to me." Deep sadness took the place of Sarutobi's anger, which burst like a bubble. Kakashi, Minato never wanted this for his son. He wanted his son to be known as a hero. But I could not keep that promise. Naruto's lineage had to be hidden to protect him. We have both failed in our duty to Minato's memory. I am no better than you. Keep a better watch on him. Do not fail your sensei again. The boy was lucky this time. His luck may not hold the next time somebody makes an attempt on his life. I am grateful, Hokage Sama. This will not happen again, if I may speak freely, sir. You may. Why do you insist on assigning him civilian caretakers? They know nothing about the Kyuubi. They think Naruto is the demon himself in human form. Why don't you give him to a shinobi family? There are many who are more than ready to accept the responsibility. He will be safer and he will be able to meet other children of his age and actually have a normal childhood. No, I have thought about but decided against it. By doing that, I would be compelling him to be a shinobi. That is something I do not want to do. If he wants to become a shinobi, it should be of his own choice. If he chooses to, he may remain a civilian. I will not force him to be a weapon for the village. That is your reason? You consign him to a childhood of hate just because you don't want him to feel compelled to become a shinobi? He is a Jinchuriki and that of the Kyuubi no less. He is destined to become a shinobi. Think of who his parents are. Yes. That is true. It is also true that he has been cursed to a difficult life without him having a say in the matter. He will never have a normal life and he will never be given the same opportunities which others will be given. I want to give him the chance to at least decide if he wants to die in a battlefield or of old age surrounded by family. For once, his trusted shinobi was silenced. I believe it's time you got back to your duties. If I know him correctly, Naruto must have sneaked out of the hospital already. The copy ninja vanished without a word. Sarutobi summoned his secretary as soon as he was gone. Let it be known that today's attackers have received life imprisonment. If there is another attack on the boy, I will have the perpetrators executed. Hi, Hokage. Sama. Sarutobi sat down with a heavy heart and reached for his secret supply of sake. When the civilian council showed up and insisted that he reverse his decision, he was going to need it. He expressed gratitude to his lucky stars for placing the boy in a remote hospital wing. There would have been a riot if more people had detected the Kyuubi's chakra. On top of the Yondaimi's head, Naruto took a seat. Whenever he needed to think, he would come here. Or a hiding spot. It calmed him in a way he had never experienced before. He was the container of the Kyuubi. He could not have dreamed what he had seen. It had been too authentic. His bones were still tingling from that brief encounter. The fox's voice was still echoing in his head. Everyone detested him because of this. To kill the Kyuubi, the Yondaime had not given his life. In order to seal the Kyuubi inside Naruto, he had given his life. He was seen by the villagers as the one who had murdered their relatives, destroyed their houses, and taken away their cherished Hokage. Why was he selected? The day of the Kyuubi attack coincided with his birthday. Could it be that he had been a baby? At the time, he might have been the only newborn available. Could only newborns be sealed with the Kyuubi? Why not encase it in a powerful shinobi such as the Jiji? Now he suddenly understood what the old man had said. He understood why the elderly man had referred to him as a hero. He knew what the old man was asking of him. His life made sense for the first time in a very long time. Now he understood why the village despised him. He rose and returned to the medical facility. 1 week later, Naruto was so excited that he rushed into his new apartment. As soon as the Jiji had brought him here, he had left the hospital. Someone had been hired by the Jiji to move all of his possessions from Minami-san's home. He appreciated the old man's consideration. He had been afraid to go back there. His new home was compact but fully equipped. Now that he would be living alone, he assumed he would need to learn how to cook. He collapsed on his sofa. It was lumpy and threadbare, but it belonged to him. He owned the entire place. He gave a little hoot of delight. After some time, his joy subsided. It was time to start working. It had taken him a week to plan this, since his dream. In the center of his living room, he took a seat, closed his eyes, and assumed the lotus pose. Then he began to meditate. He made contact with the roiling anger that was constantly bubbling up inside of him. The anger he had suppressed all his life. He was back in the big pipe room when he opened his eyes. He gazed up at his inner cage. Darkness encircled his prisoner. In the darkness, he could barely see his hideous shape. "Hello," he called. The Kyuubi let out a deep growl that echoed throughout the room. He was glared down at by two enormous eyes that flicked upon him. He was not yet the target of any murderous intent. The Kyuubi sat down on his paws and stepped forward into the light. "You have come here of your own volition, mortal. You are stupider than you look but brave." With no fear in his eyes, Naruto gazed back at his prisoner. "Tell me, what do you want?" "Nothing. I just wanted to see the reason why my village hates me." After opening his eyes, Naruto went back to his home. The following day, Naruto's stomach rumbled as he awoke. It wasn't a pleasant way to start the day, he concluded. He let out a sigh. He assumed that he would now need to go grocery shopping. Up until now, his caregivers had always taken care of that. Then he realized that after purchasing the food, he had no idea what to do with it. He berated himself for not taking advantage of Minami-san's cooking lessons sooner. His stomach rumbled loudly once more. Naruto stood up, cursed his stomach, and made the decision to wing it. Naruto gazed at the abundance of fruits, vegetables, meats, and dairy items spread out in front of him. He didn't know how to prepare any of them or what to buy. Upon reflection, he was unsure if his apartment included the necessary kitchenware to prepare meals. He wasn't sure how to use them. He wandered deeper into the store in a daze, avoiding the owner's glum stare. The instant food counter caught his wandering gaze. He was capable of handling that. Pasta in a flash. Quick pizza. Instant ramen. He quickly discovered that instant ramen was the least expensive. After selecting 4 packs, he returned to the sales counter. As he came closer, the proprietor forced a tiny smile onto his face. "Sir, if you don't mind, could you please replace those packs from where you picked them up? Those items are for display only. If you'll wait a few seconds, I'll bring some fresh stock from the back." Naruto gave a nod. I had never gone shopping before. How could he have been aware of the display items? He waited for the owner to return after replacing the packs. As promised, the owner returned in a matter of seconds. "Let me ring these up for you, sir." From a female voice, "You mind if I see those?" Naruto turned to see that the voice belonged to a young, brown-haired woman. She rushed to the counter and grabbed the ramen box out of the owner's hands. She flipped it over and looked at the label. She was not pleased with what she saw. "You sick bastard. How dare you try to cheat an innocent boy like that? Don't you have any shame? These are all way past their expiration dates." Ayame-san, this is not some innocent kid. This is that demon kid. He doesn't deserve your kindness, the shopkeeper shot back. "Shut up. Look at that cute face of his. Does he look like a demon to you? Shame on you. I'm going to tell all my friends to avoid this place from now on." She approached Naruto, grinned, and extended her hand. "Hi. I'm Ayame. Come with me, I'll help you buy whatever you want." She took Naruto by the hand and dragged him along with her. Naruto gazed up at the generous woman who had assisted him. He had been touched by her. She continued to caress him. Most people stayed away from him physically. Her hand was pleasant and warm. "So tell me, what do you need to buy?" "Oh waiter, that was so rude of me. I didn't even ask you your name." Naruto released his hand. "Why are you doing this?" "Huh? What do you mean? You touched me. Nobody touches me. People run away when I go near them. And you stopped that shopkeeper from cheating me. Why?" Looking down at him, Ayame scowled. She developed a vein on her forehead. A vein of intense rage. "Young man, do you know how rude that was? I help you out and you insult me in return? Apologize now." Fearful, Naruto retreated. The woman had a terrifying appearance. It wasn't a good idea to annoy her, he guessed. He raised his hands in contrition. "Sorry, Chan," he said, his knees shaking. "I was rude and stupid. Please forgive me." Ayame leaned down to his height and grinned, her rage instantly gone. "Just because others aren't nice to you doesn't mean that I have to be the same. Besides, you're so cute, there is no way I could be mean to you." Pulling his cheeks, she extended her hand. Despite his grimace, Naruto made no attempt to break free. He did not wish to agitate this woman once more. Finding food to buy had seemed like a nightmare to him, but this was far worse. One moment this woman was yelling at him, the next she was petting him. He made the decision to try his best to stay away from her going forward. This realization caused his stomach to rumble once more. She released his cheeks as she heard it. His stomach had done him a favor for the first time today. "You're starving, aren't you? Come on. My dad and I run a restaurant. You can eat something there. It's not too far away." He had been warned by the Jiji not to follow strangers. In particular, those who offered him items. His stomach rumbled once more. With a shrug, he followed the insane woman. At least he would pass away feeling full if she were to murder him. He didn't want to be trapped haunting people while he was constantly hungry if he turned into a ghost. He would rather groan to frighten them. Not with his stomach complaining. For him, a few hours of hunger was more than sufficient. "Hey, Dad. We have a customer. This is Naruto-kun. Whip him up a bowl." Sure. Have a seat, young man. What'll you have?" Naruto struggled with the characters as he gazed at the menu for a few moments. He recently learned to read thanks to the Jiji hat, but he still needed more practice. "One miso ramen." "Good choice. It'll be ready in a couple of minutes." As promised, Tuchi-san set a fragrant and delectable bowl in front of him. Naruto's hunger increased as he breathed in the scent. He jumped right in. It smelled even better than it tasted. "Oi, Jiji. How much for one bowl?" 20 ryo. Naruto mentally performed a few calculations. He learned another skill from the Jiji. It would end up being less expensive to eat here than to buy the food himself. In addition, it spared him the trouble of learning to cook. The food also had a wonderful scent. "Great. One more, old man." After 2 days after supper at Ichiraku, Naruto returned to his home. For the past 2 days, he had been eating all of his meals there. He had been thinking about his prisoner for 2 days. He had inquiries. Lots of questions, and he thought he was going to get answers for once. He moved to the middle of the room and shut the door behind him. He took a seat and shut his eyes again. In a moment, his sandals were completely soaked with water. When he first entered his mindscape involuntarily, the water was hot enough to burn him. But this time, there was cool water collecting around his feet. It was cool enough to be comfortable against his skin. His eyes opened, and he looked up at the Kyuubi again. Back then, you offered to give me power. Why? A single, menacing eye opened and gazed down at him with an air of authority. You wanted to kill. I offered you the power you needed to do so. Saying, I didn't want to kill anybody, Naruto shook his head. I was angry at them. But I didn't want to kill anyone. I can sense your emotions, boy. I have been doing so for a long time. I know what hatred feels like. Naruto said, I don't want to kill them, again. Why not? Why do they deserve your mercy? They have tried to kill you on multiple occasions in the past. I've been watching. You have only survived so far because of my healing power. Why save me? Let me die. Then you'd be free. With a growl, the Kyuubi raised his head. He looked at Naruto after opening both of his eyes. Because if you die, then I die. I see. No, you don't. With time, I will reform. But it is a painful and time-consuming process. Even this sewer is preferable to that. With a growl of disgust, the Kyuubi sank back down. You didn't answer the question. Why did you try to give me power? The water started to bubble. In an instant, the room's temperature rose sharply. The Kyuubi opened his eyes and gave his jailer a fierce look. I did give you an answer, boy. I do not like being asked to repeating myself, to kill them. But why? The villagers have done nothing to you. The enormous beast roared as it reared up. He raised his arm and made a powerful swipe at his cage, but the bars easily deflected his blow. He charged at the bars after rearing back once more. The force of the attack caused the bars to vibrate, but they held. The Kyuubi snarled in anger, inserted his hand through the bars, and began to claw at Naruto. The water started to rise in level and boiled fiercely. He was once more the target of the Kyuubi's immense murderous intent. Fear and panic tore at him. He repelled them with great effort. You puny humans have imprisoned me in this cage time and time again for no fault of my own. I have been cursed and hated for centuries. Why should I not tear all you mortals apart? Anger also blossomed inside Naruto for the first time. No fault of your own. You attacked us. You killed so many families. You destroyed more than half the village. I have heard the stories and I've seen how much of the village is newly built, he yelled. The Kyuubi appeared to lose his rage. He ducked back into the darkness. When he spoke, his deep voice was much softer. I did not attack your village. Lies, Naruto cried out. It's true, boy. When I attacked your village, I was under somebody else's control. More lies. How can anyone control something like you? There is one who can do it. Who? Uchiha Madara. The Kyuubi spit out. That was a name Naruto had never heard of. He would have to research this Madara individual and see if he was real. This man was undoubtedly well known if he had the strength to command something like the Kyuubi. Then he opened his eyes and came back to reality. He really didn't feel like talking to the old man anytime soon, and he was going to have to ask him. Not after concealing from him something akin to the Kyuubi. The following day, as the mission assignment shift came to an end, Naruto entered the Sandaime Hokage's office. The elderly man grinned at Naruto as he raised his head from the note he was reading. He resumed reading his note and said, Hello Naruto. How's your new flat coming along? Naruto said, It's okay, and he took a seat. Good. What are you doing for meals? I'm managing, the boy said vaguely. I have something to ask. It's about a shinobi. He had to be able to pick up on even a hint of animosity after years of experimenting with politics. And Naruto was producing a good deal of it at the moment. Setting the note aside, he focused entirely on his adopted grandson. He threw himself into it without hesitation. You seem angry? Have I done something wrong? The boy was caught off guard, and his eyes widened. No, I'm not angry. You became pretty good at spotting lies when you lived as long as Sarutobi did. The learning curve had only been accelerated by becoming Hokage at such a young age. Now he had two choices. He had two options. Confront Naruto or give him time to calm down. Eventually, the boy would let him in. I see. Who did you want to talk about? Asked the man. Uchiha Madara. Sarutobi easily schooled his face. He had learned that skill over the years as Hokage. He had not heard the name Madara in a long time. The fact that a 4-year-old boy said it was even more unexpected. His voice was low as he asked, Where did you hear that name? I heard two Chunin talking about him in a restaurant. One more lie. And not a very good one either, he ignored it. I see. And what were they saying about him? Uncomfortably, he trailed off. Well, they were saying something about how he can control the Kyuubi. One more blatant lie. And a troubling one at that, but he couldn't confront him about it now because it was too late. Not how he can. How he could. Saying, Uchiha Madara is dead, and he has been so for many years now. He was defeated in battle by the Shodai Hokage. Sarutobi pointed with his pipe to the painting of his predecessor. So what did you want to ask about him? Well, if people can control the Kyuubi, then why did the Yondaime have to sacrifice himself to defeat the Kyuubi? Sarutobi knew instantly that something was amiss. These questions are too personal to be coincidental. No, it is impossible to control a Biju. Naruto interrupted. Wait. You mean there are more like the Kyuubi? Sarutobi gave a nod. Yes. There are 9. They range from the Ichibi to the Kyuubi. The boy listened raptly as he stared at him. Yes. There are 9, Sarutobi remarked thoughtfully. Anyway, back to your question. It is normally impossible to control a Biju. However, an extremely few exceptionally talented people have managed to do so over the years. Uchiha Madara was one. The Shodai Hokage was another. He reflected on the ceiling. If you want to know more about them, then you should read the Academy textbook on the history of a shinobi. From what I remember, it has quite an in-depth description of the rivalry between Uchiha Madara and Hashirama Sama. I see. So the Yondaime had no choice. Yes, the Sandaime said solemnly. There was silence for a time. Thanks, Gigi, Naruto exclaimed as he leapt from his chair and started to walk away. Naruto, the Sandaime called. Be careful who you talk to about this topic. It's quite sensitive. You're welcome to come to me about it whenever you want. As he walked out of the room, Naruto nodded. Sarutobi gazed at the door that was closed. Clearly, the boy was too smart for his own good. He would need to pay more attention. Naruto's face broke into a small smile as the door was shut behind him. He was getting better. Despite his suspicions, the elderly man had provided him with the information he sought. The following night, with an enormous frown on his face, Naruto bounded into his apartment. Throughout the day, he had read everything he could find about Uchiha Madara at the public library. And what he had discovered had not pleased him. Uchiha Madara is dead. He has been dead for more than 50 years, he yelled. The Kyuubi stood up and turned to face his jailer, letting out a hot breath of air. I know. I was there. I saw him die, but the man who wrenched me from your mother had. My mother? What are you talking about? Your mother, my previous host. A stunned Naruto questioned, you were sealed within my mother? Yes. Kushina Uzumaki. Naruto was at a loss for words. His parents had been shinobi. The Gigi had informed him. He had been informed that his parents had perished in the Kyuubi attack. The idea that his mother had been doomed to the same fate as him had never even occurred to him. As he made his way back to his room, his mind in disarray and his concentration totally broken, he gasped. Why had his mother not been mentioned to him? What prevented the Gigi from informing him about the Kyuubi? He growled and punched himself in the face to calm his racing mind. It was ineffective. He stepped out into the cool, dark night, confused. He cursed himself for not wearing something warmer as he walked idly down the street, shivering. Why hadn't the elderly man informed him of the monster inside of him? Was Naruto not trusted by the elderly man? Was he worried about killing people with the power the Kyuubi had offered? Naruto was so absorbed in his own thoughts that he ran straight into a pedestrian and both of them fell to the ground. He sat up, groaning, and cradled his head. It was fairly heavily cracked against the pavement by him. When he looked up, the man he had walked into was staring at him with barely concealed hatred, and he shook his head to get rid of the lights dancing in his eyes. The man was clearly aware of his identity, who he was. As they both clambered up, the man growled at him, you fucking bastard. How dare you attack me like that? Even Naruto didn't blink. He was accustomed to having his actions twisted by others. Before he could say anything more, he brushed past the man and walked away quickly. I apologize, he said, bowing his head to the man. I did not see where I was going. Why? Why stoop your head? You have done nothing wrong. You don't deserve their rejection. Why apologize, yo? Because if I fight back, then I'm no better than them. Naruto walked until he was unable to walk anymore, closing his mind to the beast inside of him. After 2 days, Naruto held a bunch of flowers as he stood in front of a grave. He sat down beside the bouquet and leaned down to place it on the grave marker. He had spent the majority of his allowance on the flowers. After 2 days of relentless searching, He had finally located his mother's grave. He said, "Hello, mother," as he gazed at the writing. "You probably don't recognize me, but I'm your son, Naruto." He hesitated a moment. "I came to talk to you, you know. I guessed that you might have wanted to know that I was doing okay. I'm fine, I guess. The Gigi got me a new flat last week. It's small, but I like it. It's just me in there and I like it that way. I'm 4 years old now. Should have told you that first, I guess. Only 3.4 attempts on my life in 4 years. So I guess it's been an okay 4 years for me," he grumbled. He got to his feet with a sigh. "That was sarcasm, in case you didn't realize. I don't even know whether you appreciate sarcasm or not." Over his shoulder, he called, "I guess that I'm never going to find out," while making his way home. 1 week later, as Naruto made his way down the row of gravestones, it was pouring rain. "Hello, mother," he said, setting the sopping wet bouquet on the grave marker. He brushed his damp hair away from his eyes and said, "I hope you don't mind wet flowers. I picked them myself. Can't afford to buy them again. I don't have an umbrella, so there's nothing I could do about it. I just ate at Ichiraku's. They sell really awesome ramen there. Chuchi.san, the owner, is really nice. Not like the other villagers. He gives me a couple of free bowls every week. Says that I'm his best customer. I have to be his best customer since I eat there every day," he chuckled. His daughter, Ayame.san, is nice too. She's scary but nice. She's also not like the other villagers. "Did the villagers hate you as well? They must have, 'cause they definitely hate me." He whispered, "Did you hate them as well?" He gazed up at the stormy sky while closing his eyes. Through his eyelids, he could see the lightning flashes. "I used to hate them as well. I went out to the festival last year and they tried to kill me. And Anbu stopped them before they finished the job. I used to hate them, but it was tiring. I was angry all the time. It just gave me a headache, made my mind spin. So I gave up. Stopped caring about them, made everything easier." "What did you do? Did you try to kill them? Did the Kyuubi offer you his power as well?" He let out a sigh. "Every time I come here, I curse myself for talking to a dead person. Someone who can't talk back to me. Every time I go home, I get lonely. So I end up coming here. You must have had people to talk to. A father, a mother, a family. My father must have been nice." The cold rainwater mingled with hot tears as they streamed down his face. "Why me, mother? Why was I chosen? Why did you die and leave me with this thing inside me?" On his carpet, Naruto's sneakers made a loud squeaking sound. Without caring if his couch got wet, he took off his sneakers and lay down. Shutting his eyes, he concentrated on stepping into the world inside of him. Every time was simpler than the last. He hugged his knees and sat down in the water, sighing. "Don't you ever get tired? Of what? Of being angry all the time? Try being imprisoned alone for years on end, boy. I'm a prisoner as well. I can't leave this place because of you, and I'm alone. Nobody comes near me because of you." The Kyuubi gazed at him, but remained silent. "I used to hate them as well, for how they treated me. The people in the orphanage. My caretakers. I was angry at them all the time. But I just got tired of it. Being angry didn't help me in any way. It didn't make my life suck any less. It just made my head hurt. So I stopped. I stopped caring. Why are you telling me all this? You're the only person who I can talk to, you know. You're not just imprisoned with me. Both of us are imprisoned together in this village." The Kyuubi stood up on his haunches and gazed at Naruto without saying anything. "You're a strange one, boy. No one has ever talked to me before. Not your mother. Not the one before her." Naruto raised his head from between his knees and asked, "Huh?" He chuckled softly. "You're lonely as well, are you? Ironic, isn't it?" The Kyuubi's chest rumbled with laughter and the room echoed. "Not ironic, boy. Sad. Laughably sad." For a long time, they gazed at one another in silence. "Uchiha Madara, he was killed long ago. You lied to me." "I did not lie to you. I saw Madara die with my own eyes. I was there when he fought the Shodai Hokage. But the man who pulled me out from your mother. I did not see his face, but he had the same chakra as Madara. The same malevolence. Why should I believe you? I am placing no compulsion on you to accept my words. I'm simply telling you the truth. It is up to you if you want to believe it. I can offer evidence if you need persuasion." The Kyuubi got to his feet, thrust his fist through his cage's bars, and extended it toward Naruto. Naruto's face was expressionless as he gazed at the fist. Then he got up and began to approach the Kyuubi at a leisurely pace. "Aren't you afraid that I'll kill you if you come any closer? You could. But I'm willing to take the risk. I'm curious about this evidence you want show me. You trust the word of a stranger so easily. You're naive, boy. You'll die easily in this world. Naruto gave a shrug. He pointed to the water as he walked, saying, the last time you tried to kill me, the water was boiling. It almost burned my skin off. Look at how calm it is right now. Somehow I get the feeling that if you wanted to kill me, I'd know. Pressing his fist against the Kyuubi's fist, he raised it. You're lucky, boy. If you had come this close yesterday, I would have shredded you. Today. Well, today I'm curious to see how you react. Naruto's mind was filled with a flurry of sounds and pictures. The representation of a red eye, 3 tomos and a red eye. The eye started to rotate. A red-eyed man in a mask. Loss of command. A stunning red-haired woman. The woman is being targeted by the Kyuubi. A man with his own blonde, spiky hair. A man who resembled the statue of the Yondaime Hokage exactly. The village. The village is being attacked by the Kyuubi. The Gigi retaliated. Freedom from authority. Perplexity in a raging rage. A massive black energy ball. An enormous toad. A massive explosion. Once more, the man and the woman. A newborn child. A yellow-haired baby. The man and woman were impaled by a gigantic claw. The final words of the mother to her child. The final words of the woman to him. The final words his mother spoke to him. His final words to his father. He let out a cry and leapt back, landing on his knees in the warm water. His face was flooded with hot tears that poured out of his eyes. He put his hands to his face in an attempt to still his racing thoughts and heart. He attempted to interpret the pictures he had been sent. His father was the Yondaime. To save the village, he had given up both his mother and himself. You killed them. You killed my parents. Yes, I did. He was overcome with grief and anger, his face flushed. With a roar of anger, he awoke. His eyes continued to well up with tears. Anger-filled tears. Tears of sorrow over his parents' passing. He ran away. He jumped out of his barefooted flat. He took off running. He dashed into the night's rain. He ran until his senses failed him. Naruto was lying in his own bed when he awoke. He lifted the covers with weary, trembling arms and discovered that was dressed in his pajamas. He rolled out of bed, wondering who had changed him and how he had returned home. In order to perform his morning ablutions, he entered his bathroom. As he took off his shirt, he looked at his image in the mirror. He looked again, more intently. He resembled his father exactly. Memories of the night before came flooding back to him as he gazed into the mirror. He screamed in rage and slammed his mirror with all his strength, breaking it into a million pieces in an instant. Warm blood dripped from his fist and onto his floor in droplets. He raised his fist and looked at it. Sharp glass shards were protruding from it. After removing each fragment individually, he rinsed his hand with warm water. He raised his hand once more and observed the closure of the punctures. His father was the Yondaime. The Hokage had been his father. He was the village's strongest man. And only because of his sacrifice did the village survive. He balled his hands into fists. The sacrifice made by his parents would not be in vain. What they had wanted him to do, he would do. He would be superior to both of them as a shinobi. For them, he would do it. He didn't love this village. Not because he was trying to impress people. He couldn't allow his parents' sacrifice to go unappreciated, so he would do it. Getting a new mirror was the first thing he needed to do. Shutting his eyes, he entered his inner world. He approached the prison inside of him and gazed up at the Kyuubi. I'll make you a deal. What kind of deal? You help me become Hokage. In return I'll study up about this seal. When I figure it out, I'll open it and let you go. Leaning down, the Kyuubi held his head at Naruto's level. Hot breath hit Naruto's face after escaping his maw. Would you take care of that for me? Naruto gave a shrug. Why? I murdered your parents. I attempted to demolish your village. Yes. Indeed. You did. I don't blame you, though. My folks. They were treating you the same way I'm treated in the village. The people who were putting you in jail against your will and for no fault of your own made you angry. They were attempting to put you in jail once more. I get you. I've only had to put up with this hatred for 4 years. You've been rejected in this manner for an unknown number of years. But why? Now why should you trust me? Since no one has ever trusted me before, why did now? Yesterday, you had the chance to kill me. You didn't. You deserve one, I suppose. In addition, yesterday you revealed the truth to me. You killed my parents, and you didn't hide it. You donated. He pressed his fist to his heart and said, It means a lot to me that you gave me my parents' last words. The Kyuubi didn't say anything. It's not really that simple. My presence has caused your chakra coils to develop. You will undoubtedly perish if you allow me to leave. This seal cannot be broken. It must be unlocked the way it was intended. Naruto silently extended his fist while glaring at the Kyuubi. I'll do it if that's what it takes. I mean, I don't really have anyone to live for. Partners? He inquired. After a long moment of staring at the offered fist, the Kyuubi pushed his own fist through the bars. Yes. Partners. For the time being. Naruto's fist was pressed against the Kyuubi's. I'll commit suicide if you break the agreement. Join me in taking you down. The Kyuubi let out another hot breath and gave a low growl. I keep to my words, boy. Naruto gave a nod. Don't forget that your death will not kill me. This sewer must be awful enough if that's what you prefer. Do I need to continue referring to you as the Kyuubi, or do you have a name? The Kyuubi's face briefly displayed a look of surprise. Boy, what gives you the impression that I have a name? Nothing, shrugged Naruto. We recently became partners, so I thought I should ask you your name. For a long time, the Kyuubi gazed at the boy in front of him. You're a peculiar individual, Naruto Uzumaki. Not like any human I've ever encountered. I do have a name, yes, Kurama. I understand. It's helpful to know that. Okay, I'm going. Kurama-san. I'll see you around. Naruto went back to his bathroom after opening his eyes. As he stepped into what she regarded as her territory, the librarian gave him a look of pure disgust. He disregarded her. She couldn't communicate with him as long as she limited herself to appearances. Yesterday, he hadn't allowed it to bother him. Today, he would not allow it to bother him. Secret villages were proud of their secrets and made great efforts to keep them that way. The public, genin, chunin, and junin sections of the Konoha library were thus divided into several smaller sections. Although the library did not have jutsu's instruction, it did have a large number of general texts covering every topic a shinobi might be interested in. The library had expanded so much under the Sandame's watch that it now took up an entire building. All were welcome to use the ground floor, which was kept up by civilian employees. Only those with a Konoha Hite.8 and the necessary rank were allowed entry to the library, which was heavily guarded and sealed off from the first floor and above. Naruto had found the academy student. Only idle during his first visit to the library. At that time, he had only read books about shinobi history. He expanded his search this time. After some time, he brought books about stealth, chakra control, and ninjutsu back to the librarian. I would like to issue these, please. As the woman examined the titles, a greasy grin appeared on her face. I'm sorry, but you cannot take these books out of the library. Naruto squinted his eyes. The direction of the conversation didn't sit well with him. What do you mean? This is the public section, isn't it? Yes, but these books are about the shinobi arts. You need an adult guardian to issue books regarding the shinobi arts. You've got to be kidding me. You made up that rule just now. He taunted the woman, but she didn't respond. I did not make the rules. Do you want to talk to my manager? His office is upstairs and he'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have. The manager must be a shinobi if his office was upstairs. He inhaled deeply and suppressed the rage that was rising inside of him. Naruto said, no, it's okay, and he reclaimed the books. I'll put these back where I found them. Thank you for your time. He turned abruptly and made his way to the reading area. It was likely that he would be there for a long time. After a month perusing a scroll that was placed in front of him, Naruto sat in the center of his room. Dozens of scrolls were scattered across the floor around him. He had started taking his own notes because he was unable to bring books home, which had ended up being a godsend. He discovered that writing things down made it much easier for his mind to remember them. He was looking at a list on the scroll. A list of things to do. A list he had made in the library's reading room after spending many hours there. He had begun with the textbooks from the academy, and it had turned out to be gold. He had gone through them like a ravenous wolf would. When he was finished, he had a general idea of all the fundamental skills he required. The range of skills a shinobi could specialize in was extensive. To survive in the field, however, all shinobi needed to possess a few key abilities. Theoretical understanding, endurance and physical prowess, taijutsu, chakra regulation, ninjutsu, genjutsu is being dispelled, mastery of projectile weapons, covert, abilities for survival, first aid abilities, cooperation and strategic planning. Proficiency in these domains was a prerequisite for advancement to chunin. The academy provided the majority of genin with a working knowledge, after which their Junin sensei whipped them into shape. But his goal was much higher. Prior to joining the academy, his goal was to become an expert on the list. Children from the different clans in the village would compete with him once he joined the academy. He would struggle mightily to keep up with the rigorous training they received on a daily basis. He required a training schedule, and a rigorous one, too. The fundamentals of every subject he wished to become an expert in were described in the academy textbooks. That would have to be where he started. For him, disciplines like stealth and taijutsu were the issue. One could not learn these techniques from a book. They needed guidance and practical experience. He had pushed them down the hierarchy in light of that. Mornings are spent exercising. Theoretical information in the afternoons at the library. At night, practice ninjutsu and chakra control. That would be his routine for the next several years. He shivered with excitement and smiled. It was going to be enjoyable. It had never been fun for him. He eagerly anticipated it. The use of fuinjutsu was the other obstacle. A very specialized and mysterious branch of shinobi arts was fuinjutsu. Despite his best efforts, he was unable to locate a single book that concentrated on fuinjutsu, even though it was mentioned in passing in the majority of the texts he had read. Not in the public area, anyway. He would require access to the Junin or Chunin sections in some way. He was light years away from being hoodwinked by shinobi guards. He also sighed and relegated it to the future. After 3 weeks, Naruto Uzumaki was leaning against a tree trunk, panting, at night. At the moment, he was in a clearing in the village's surrounding forests. Numerous leaves were strewn all over him. He was practicing the control of his chakras. The energy that resulted from the blending of spiritual and physical energy was called chakra. Enhancing one's physical stamina and strength could boost the physical energy that was gathered from the body's cells. The mind's consciousness was the source of spiritual energy, which could be enhanced via experience and meditation. Every living thing naturally produces a tiny quantity of chakra and allows it to pass through the chakra regulatory system in their body. However, through training, shinobi could forcefully combine their spiritual and physical energies to shape more chakra. They could perform ninjutsu and other similar techniques by using the numerous tenkutsu on their bodies to release the extra chakra that was flowing through the chakra network. The amount of chakra that naturally flows through a shinobi's chakra network grows with time and experience, and this can be used to approximate the shinobi's overall chakra possession. The academy network described water walking, tree climbing, and leaf concentration as the fundamental chakra control exercises. The first exercise was finally accomplished by Naruto after 2 weeks of persistent effort. The assignment had been to use chakra to adhere a leaf to his forehead. The majority of shinobi could execute this incredibly basic technique while they were asleep. At first, it had been an enormous undertaking for a 4-year-old boy who had never molded chakra before. It had taken him roughly a week to successfully mold the chakra. Another week had been consumed by directing the molded chakra toward the tenketsu on his palm in order to release it. He had lost the remaining time by varying the amount of chakra he used. When he flipped his palm, the leaf would fall away if he used too little. The leaf folded unto itself and broke apart on its own if he used too much. He lifted a weary arm and used his sleeve to wipe the perspiration from his face. He closed his eyes and dropped his arm, letting out a tired sigh. He inhaled deeply and bided his time until the tremors of fatigue subsided. He thought he had a mild case of chakra exhaustion based on what he had read. It would be a few hours before he moved. But after a few minutes, he felt his body regain its strength, and his eyes opened wide in surprise. The symptoms of mild chakra exhaustion had been described in the book as lasting at least 2 hours. He was receptive to his new partner. The book I read said that mild chakra exhaustion lasted for a couple of hours and that I would not be able to move until it passed. It's hardly been 10 minutes and I feel better already. Yes. That is because of my chakra. Your chakra? Yes. The 8 trigams seal which the Yondaime used on me innately steals a tiny bit of my chakra and channels it into your chakra network. My chakra is much more potent and powerful than you humans. It is what gives you your accelerated healing and your stamina. You mean other people don't heal this fast? No, your healing rate is pitifully slow, you humans. Sometimes it takes weeks or even months. I understand. I was unaware of that. Naruto pondered Kurama's words in silence for a long time. Cut it off. What? Cut it off? You give me that bit of chakra. Cut it off. May I inquire why? I have to improve my abilities on my own. I can't fully depend on your power. Why not? You'll become one of the strongest shinobi in this village with ease if you use my chakra. Yes. It's accurate. Hokage will be within my reach. Then what? I'll be releasing you as soon as I figure out this seal, as we agreed. Then what? No, I must be independent. I understand. As you like. Thank you, Kurama-san, Naruto said, sitting up. This small amount of chakra you mentioned is what I appreciate. Can you only give me that? No, not in my opinion. Your seal here is. How should I phrase it? Assume that it is open a little. I believe I have much more to offer you. But be careful. Your chakra is completely different from mine. What are you saying? Compared to yours, my chakra is far stronger and more powerful. It can't be used for small tasks like applying adhesive to your body. Techniques that call for precise chakra control are not appropriate for it. I understand. Now give me a little of your chakra. Like I do with my own chakra, I want to see if I can control it. Are you certain that's a wise choice? You are currently being watched by a man. We're not sure how my chakra will affect him. Is someone observing me? Yes. They are 2 in number. They take turns watching you and are always on guard. And why didn't you inform me earlier? He asked passionately. Unless it is absolutely necessary, I am not the type to strike up a conversation. I didn't think it was urgent because the man appeared to be your protector. I understand. Naruto stated somewhat stiffly, I would like to be informed about things like this immediately for future reference. I'll make a point of it. Naruto said, thank you, and then fell into a reflective hush. Then Naruto said, you said that you sensed him, but what did you mean by that? I am able to sense the chakra and negative emotions of those around me. Sad feelings. I am attuned to anger, hatred, vengeance and similar states of mind. Why? I was made by my creator to represent rage and hatred. Only he knows the reason behind his actions. The creator? That is a story for some other time. I understand. What is your range, by the way? My sensing range has been drastically reduced because I am confined in your cage. At most, a few hundred feet, I would say. I understand. That will be very helpful, Naruto muttered quietly. The following day, just as his alarm was about to go off, Naruto's eyes flicked open, and he quickly turned it off before it could release its startling tone. He had been getting up early every morning to work on his physical training, and after 2 weeks, his body had adjusted to the sleep cycle and had woken up on its own. He grumbled as he sat up and rolled off the bed, and since it was still dark outside and the sun hadn't even risen, he cursed his former self for making him get up at this ungodly hour. After completing his ablutions, he left his house through his window and walked to the village gate, stretching his various body muscles as he went. He planned to complete 100 repetitions of squats, sit-ups, push-ups, and pull-ups each at the end of the first month, and by the beginning of the 3rd month, he hoped to be able to complete 50 laps and 1,000 repetitions. According to what he had read, this regimen seemed to be the fundamental muscle and endurance building regimen most shinobi used when they first started, so far, but he was happy with his progress. As he started his first lap, he nodded to the gate guards, Azumo and Katetsu, with whom he had developed a respectable relationship and who appeared to be regularly assigned gate duty. To his right, a man in a green full-body spandex suit appeared out of nowhere while he was on his 3rd lap. Gosh! It is rare for me to meet someone else so early in the morning, he yelled as he ran beside Naruto. Tell me what you're doing here, please. Training to improve my speed and endurance. Why? Because I want to become a shinobi. Yash. Within you, the fire of youth burns brightly. The man gave Naruto a blinding smile and a thumbs up, saying, good luck. Naruto watched in silence as the man vanished into the distance in a cloud of dust. Naruto quickly finished his allotted laps and fell against the gates in frustration and exhaustion. It was really annoying to be lapped 11 times in a row by a man in a green jumpsuit. On the 4th day, the man ran backwards and was still able to lap him at the same pace, and on the 5th day, he outpaced him once more while running on his hands. This happened again the following day and the day after that. I'm furious with that man. I'll kill myself if he runs backwards on his hands and beats me. How on earth is he so quick? Is he even a person? It simply indicates that you are extremely slow. Thanks for your vote of confidence. Stop complaining then and get faster. I know. I won't stop until I'm faster than that guy. However, the distance between them remained as great as it had been for a month. After a month after completing his allotted number of laps, Naruto was sitting by the gate, exhausted, when the man in the green jumpsuit appeared in front of him. Yash. I was right when I first met you. The flames of youth do burn brightly within you. You have the guts to never give up. You have been trying to beat me for a month now, but you never gave up even though you failed every day. I commend your sincerity, the man yelled, his teeth blinding Naruto. Naruto gave him a fierce look. How do you know that I have been trying to beat you? Because, every time I surge past you, your eyes burn with the flames of rivalry and youth. I would know that look anywhere. I'm sure that I have a similar look in my own eyes when I gaze upon my very own eternal rival. How the hell are you that fast? He said, because of my youth, as though that clarified his query. I have been training like this for many years. A fledgling such as yourself has no hope of defeating me. You must follow a strict and arduous training regimen for you to have any hope of doing so. I do have a training regimen. What are you going to do next? Naruto informed him. Yash, he yelled. That is commendable but pointless. You will never be able to match me, Maida Guy, the fabulous green beast of Konoha, by following the basic endurance building regimen. No worries. I have seen your youth and I respect it. Hence, I swear that I will make you faster than myself, or else I will climb the Hokage mountain 500 times using just my index fingers, he yelled, writing something in a notebook he took out. Naruto didn't know where the jumpsuit's pockets were, and he didn't want to find out. Works for me, Naruto said, with a stunned look on his face. It was too early in the morning to deal with this guy. Yash. Follow me. I have some extra body weights at home which you can use. Body weights? A bewildered Naruto inquired. Naruto swore at his bad luck. The man was hardly able to move because of the numerous weights strapped to him. This, my dear friend, is the fastest way to build up your musculature and endurance. Given how young you are, if you are able to successfully complete this training, then you will reap immense benefits. You must not remove these weights at any time. In time, you will be able to move normally. When we reach that stage, it will be time to increase your weights. If we progress forwards using this technique, you will have unparalleled body speed quite soon. The idea of more weights made Naruto groan in his head. That is not all, my dear student. Simply strapping these weights onto your body is not sufficient. You must follow a strict regimen that strains every muscle of your body so as to ensure an even development of all your muscles. Lopsided or imbalanced development is the bane of every shinobi. Naruto gave a nod. I will assist you in developing this regimen. You must also begin training your taijutsu so that developing muscles get acclimatized to the movements of your body. I will also assist you in this. Any questions? Yes. Why are you doing this for me? Why? Because the flames of youth burn brightly within you and it is my responsibility to nurture it. Naruto let out a sigh. This guy was not going to give him a direct response anytime soon. After 2 months, Naruto was lying in the center of the training ground, exhausted and bruised. He just didn't have the energy to do anything. The simple fact was that Guy's routine was killing him. Just finishing the laps around Konoha was difficult. A titanic battle. Guy, however, never stopped there. Guy showed him the small gym he had set up in his apartment. Naruto had to perform a number of exhausting exercises that put a strain on every muscle in his body. Then taijutsu appeared. It was worse than that. At best, Guy's teaching approach was unconventional. He demonstrated to Naruto the fundamental taijutsu stances and the corresponding first-level katas. After giving Naruto an hour to become used to the forms and movements, he started beating him. And so the beatdown cycle started. Naruto would be beaten in every manner imaginable for roughly 10 minutes during their spar. After that, he would have a brief break during which all of his errors would be pointed out. After that, they started over. Lately, his body was experiencing so much stress that it was nearly impossible for him to concentrate on his other interests. Naruto called out, "Sensei," from his prone position. Guy continued his final set of push-ups and asked, "Yes? Why do you train so hard? What do you mean? You've already made Junin. You don't need to work this hard just to maintain your skills. Why do you do it?" For a while, Guy kept doing push-ups. He let out a barely perceptible moan and sat down. He whispered, "I have many reasons," which made Naruto quickly sit up. He didn't want to miss the opportunity to witness Guy's serious side for the first time. Although the man did a good job of hiding it, Naruto was certain of his high level of intelligence. The main one being to protect this village. This village is my home and I'll do anything to protect it. And to do that I have to be stronger. And to get stronger, I need to train. I see, Naruto said, nodding. You said you had many reasons. Yes. There is one who I consider to be my rival. While he may not be as fast or strong as I am, he is highly intelligent and he uses that to win his battles. I strive to be stronger than him and I hope that he does the same. What's his name? Hitaki Kakashi. He is a Junin like me. Despite not having heard of the man, Naruto nodded. Guy said, almost indiscernibly, there is one more reason. Following a lengthy silence, Guy grunted and stood up, turning to face the village. I don't know how to do anything else. Try not to emulate that part of me, he said whisperingly. After a week, Naruto muttered an expletive. He had been turned away from 3 stores before this one. If the men selling swords wouldn't accommodate him, how was he going to purchase a pair? Swords are purchased for straightforward reasons. His spars with Guy made it painfully clear that, given his size and build, he would be severely outmatched in terms of power and range if he ever faced an adult opponent. Naruto had accepted Guy's recommendation that he should focus on a weapon in order to get around that disadvantage. Before deciding on katanas, he experimented with several different weapons. Simple, direct, and lethal, kenjutsu was a concept that matched Naruto's preferred fighting style. Guy gathered knowledge about the different styles and forms of taijutsu and its variations in his spare time because he saw himself as an enthusiast for them. As a result, he offered Naruto his collection of numerous kenjutsu scrolls for examination. Naruto was able to choose a 2-sword style after studying these scrolls. Because this style was less common than a single sword style, he had a better chance of outwitting adversaries who had never encountered opponents like him. Guy also asserted that he was fairly skilled with blades and pledged to help out where he could. All he had to do now was purchase 2 swords, and he had reached a dead end there. The 3 gun stores he had visited had turned him away. As he walked into the next store, a bell tinkled. He would require Guy's assistance if this shop also prevented him from doing so. A girl his age came out of a rear door and gave him a disapproving look. Her hair was styled in 2 buns, and she wore a yukata. What do you want? Are you lost or something? No, I need to buy some weapons. Don't joke around, kid. Get out of here before my dad comes. Don't call me kid, Naruto arrogantly remarked. He pointed to his coin purse and said, you're just barely older than me yourself. And I do want to buy weapons. Look, I even have money. Where are your parents? Don't have any. After giving him a strange look, the girl turned around. Wait here. I'll get my dad. Don't touch anything, she said. She vanished through the door and came back a few minutes later with a huge, colossal man. He remarked angrily, my daughter says that you want to make a purchase. Naruto craned his neck to gaze up at the man and said, yes, I would like to purchase a standard set of shuriken and kunai. I also require 2 katanas. Do you have any for my height? After a brief search under the counter, the man set 2 small boxes on the table. Here you go. As for the swords, I do have some of your size but not too many. You won't have much a choice. I don't mind. Let me see them. Tenten, go fetch the swords. From the back room, the girl produced a sizable box. Naruto opened it and began examining each sword individually to check its balance. Guy had instructed him on how to determine whether a sword was a good fit for his build by testing its balance. Leaning down, the man selected one. Try this, he uttered sternly. The moment Naruto accepted the offered blade, he knew it was the one for him. It resembled an arm extension. With hope, he said, this is perfect. You have another one like this? After searching the box, the man finally produced a twin blade. As he practiced a few swings, Naruto said, thanks. This is brilliant. How much? Naruto quickly paid for them and walked out of the store. The girl's cry came just as he was about to leave. Hey, he pivoted. If you ever need somebody to spar with those swords, then I'll be glad to help. Thanks. I appreciate that. I'm Naruto, by the way. I'm Tenten, she said with a smile. Thanks again and see ya around. He smiled like a fox as he walked out of the store. Despite being completely broke, he was very happy. After 2 months, Hiruzen Sarutobi's secretary interrupted him as he was sitting in his office, smoking a pipe, and attempting to finish up his paperwork. Hokage. Sama, Ferret is here to see you. He says it's urgent, she said. Send him in. She gave a nod and walked away quickly. As Ferret, an Anbu agent with a code name, entered, Sarutobi nodded. The Anbu assumed her stance and bowed her head. There seems to have been a break.in into your private library, Hokage. Sama. Are you sure? How did they get past the barriers? Sarutobi asked, taking out his pipe with his usual indifference. The barriers are still in place and haven't been broken, so we're not sure, sir. Observations? None. Scent? Trail pepper. There was a lot of agitation among the Inuzuka Ninken. Were the guards unable to function? No, Hokage. Sama. What was taken? We don't hold any beliefs. That's what the preliminary estimates seem to suggest, but we're still checking every catalog. Nothing. How can we even be certain that there was a break.in if no one noticed or felt him and nothing was taken? All right, The offender left a note that read, "I was here. Have you had an analysis done on that?" He wrote with his weak hand. "Very unsteady. Check the records for matches." Nothing. The pen and paper needed are readily accessible everywhere. Are we unaware of how he overcame the obstacles? Ferret gave a headshake. So, the only thing left to do is strengthen our defenses. Let the clans know about this. The criminal may attack once more. Hey, Hokage. Sama. The criminal must have been extremely skilled to have done it, but why would he leave that note and draw attention to his misadventures? Sarutobi was unaware. The night before, having me around is a huge blessing for you, otherwise, you couldn't have accomplished this. Yes, I am aware. Thank you already. Quit flaunting yourself. I wasn't flaunting myself. I just wanted to remind you of what I did, yo. Yes. Yes. I am aware. I owe you one. I understand. Now stop talking and continue to sense. Be polite or I might even let you get caught. Naruto muttered, if I get caught, I'm screwed, as he waited for the guards on patrol to pass by his hiding place. Slow down. I'm yours. You are very unlikely to be caught at his stage. Being cautious doesn't hurt. As the patrolling Chunin passed, Naruto remarked, he is called the professor for a reason. He had left his training weights behind for this adventure, and his body felt remarkably light and swift. Naruto then put on a burst of speed and ran forward. The access point is where? Third door to the left. Created by the Shoden Hokage, the Hokage's library was located in the basement of the Hokage building and was used to store forbidden books and techniques as well as other materials that the reigning Hokage deemed unfit for public consumption. The library was protected by an Enbu-level barrier with a single access point, which Kurama could sense and whose location even the Chunin guards were unaware of. Chakra is necessary for all barriers to stay active, but ordinary sensory ninja cannot detect the chakra flowing through the barrier. Only highly skilled sensors can detect and locate barriers. Kurama was not your typical sensor. He was able to detect negative emotions, something that nearly no human sensor could do. For someone with his level of skill, detecting barriers was easy, and he was able to identify the entry point by detecting the break in the chakra flow. The sheer volume of books and scrolls astounded Naruto, who padded silently down the corridor and entered the room before the next patrol arrived. It was not a private collection, but rather a private library of sorts, and he began to look through the shelves, seeking books on fuinjutsu. As he methodically scoured the shelves, his eyes locked onto a dusty tome titled, A Basic Treatise on Fuinjutsu by Uzumaki Mito. Must be someone from his clan. He had traced his lineage to an extinguished clan from a now defunct village in the land of whirlpools. He pulled out the tome and slipped it into his pack. As he walked back towards the entrance, his eyes fell upon a shelf marked, Forbidden. The shelf was populated sparsely with around half a dozen scrolls. His curiosity overpowering him, he jogged over to the shelf and picked out a scroll. Most of the techniques in the scrolls were S-rank ninjutsu, fuinjutsu and space time techniques he had no hope of learning at his current skill levels. He did however come across two techniques he could learn. Pulling an empty scroll put of his pack, he quickly jotted down the descriptions and instructions to both. Erasing all traces of his intrusion, Naruto slipped out of the room but not before leaving a note saying, I was here. Why you insisted on doing that is beyond me. Tomorrow, they will look for you, and they may even locate you. No, I am assisting them. They must increase security if a child like me can enter. Now assist me in leaving this place. A child like you, what do you mean? Only my amazing senses allowed you to accomplish this. I want to thank you for your assistance one last time. Let's leave this place now. I don't intend to be discovered. The morning after rereading the descriptions of the two techniques he had managed to locate, Naruto sat at his table. The first was the Kage Bunshin no Jutsu, a variation of the Bunshin Jutsu developed by the Naidame Hokage that allowed the user to create solid copies of himself. The clones could perform jutsus on their own because the user's chakra was evenly distributed among each clone. If the clones were killed, they would disperse, or they could be dispelled by the user themselves, in which case they would transfer all the experiences they had gained to the user and other active clones. The jutsu itself was not prohibited, but the creation of more than two clones was, as this increased the likelihood of severe chakra exhaustion and death. Shunshin no Jutsu came in second. It was a high-speed movement technique that allowed a ninja to move from short to long distances at a nearly untraceable speed. The amount of chakra used depended on the speed and distance traveled. With practice, the speed and effectiveness of this technique could be greatly increased. It was typically used with a puff of smoke or some other element to mask the movement. While all ranks of shinobi use the standard form of the technique quite frequently, the variation that uses no masking element is prohibited because it increases the risk of chakra exhaustion if it is used repeatedly in rapid succession. Just before attempting his nighttime expedition to the Hokage's library, Naruto had finally mastered water walking, and now it was time to start learning the other academy ninjutsu. The call came from Naruto. "Oi, Kurama-san, what are you looking for? I simply went to bed. This has to be good. I wanted to know if you believe that performing jutsus without hand signs is feasible. It ought to be. You humans, as far as I can tell, use hand signs to help shape your chakra properly. I assume that with sufficient practice, you will be able to omit them and shape it yourself." Naruto mumbled thoughtfully, "That's what I thought. You return to your sleep now." Bah. After 2 months after making a hand sign and creating a kage bunshin, Naruto slipped into his bathroom, fully clothed, and used the henge jutsu to change into a rat. His clone knelt down and picked him up in his hands, then opened the small window in his bathroom and set him on the pipe that ran just below the window. Naruto nodded gratefully and fled. After running down the pipe and navigating Konoha's back alleys, he opened his mind to his partner while hiding behind a dumpster several blocks from his apartment. "Does he continue to follow me? No, he continues to watch over your apartment?" Naruto performed another henge, changing into a boy his own age, with brown hair and a round face, and he left the village by staying on the main roads. He abandoned the disguise as soon as he left the village and started running through the trees, and soon he was back in the clearing where he had practiced leaf concentration and learned how to climb trees, making it his own kind of training ground. Since learning that the Anbu had a guard on him, he had been losing his tail in this manner. He had no intention of showing them his ninjutsu training, and they most likely reported straight to the old man. He had been shocked the first time he tried to lose his tail, and the ploy had worked. He knew that the Anbu were high-level shinobi, and they should be able to read through any tricks someone of his level might use. "Give me your chakra, Kurama-san. Nobody is in the vicinity of us. At this distance, no one in the village should be able to detect it. This is yours. Make sensible use of it." Naruto gasped in surprise as Kurama's strong chakra surged into him, and he saw his clipped nails turn into claws. He couldn't see it, but his whiskers had become more noticeable, and his pupils had become vertical slits. It felt like a fire raging through his chakra network. He wasn't sure if he could control this raging chakra, and he couldn't use it for jutsus, which required precise control and tiny amounts of chakra, so he had to do something strong. Focusing the chakra on his right leg, he lifted it and stomped down, and the ground literally collapsed beneath him. He leapt back, landing a few feet away, and the dust cleared away, revealing the crater he had made with his attack. No matter how much of his own chakra he used, he would never be able to match that. He smiled. This chakra would be ideal when he needed to escape sticky situations. "Will you be able to give me more chakra than this?" "No, I'm able to provide more." "Well, one day, we'll have to give that a try." After 8 months in Training Ground 27, Naruto and Guy were performing push-ups at a furious pace. 999. 1000. 999. Guy stood up and said, "That's enough for today, Naruto-kun." Naruto, on the other hand, lay panting pitifully at his feet, and he couldn't understand how the fucking monster managed to complete their entire routine without even perspiring. The midday sun was shining straight into Naruto's eyes, but he was too exhausted to move. "Come on, Naruto-kun, let's go eat something. Since 4:30, we have been working on it." Sighing, Naruto stood up slowly and stretched. "You say that as if we haven't been doing it every day for the past 8 months, he said. "You're becoming increasingly cynical every day. That isn't always a good thing. I will be absent for a week, by the way." "Why?" "Once more, you have a mission." "Yes. During the Chunin exams, a group of genin were killed in the Forest of Death. It is my responsibility to get them back to their village." "Death Forest? What is that?" "You're not sure? That is Training Ground 44, which is restricted. I'm not sure why it's called a training ground, though. It is teeming with poisonous plants and enormous creatures. It's a really risky place. There are even some Junin that I can think of that wouldn't be able to make it through the place. Consequently, why in hell do you send genins inside? The genins must reach the central tower while avoiding every threat. That's not too hard in and of itself. That is feasible. If you don't disturb them, the majority of the animals will leave you alone. I meant to say that if they faced the beast head on, even Junins would have a difficult time surviving. Naturally, that is presuming they don't use ninjutsu. The fastest way to get better at swordsmanship was to survive a life. Or, death situation, and if the Forest of Death was anything like what Guy Sensei claimed it was, Naruto would undoubtedly face that there. He was thrilled, ecstatic. His face broke into a cunning smile. Why are you grinning so broadly, Naruto-kun? It bothers me. You don't intend to enter the Forest of Death, do you? I prohibit it. Thanks to Guy Sensei's gullibility, Naruto managed to school his features into an innocent appearance. No number, obviously not. You know I'm not a moron. Thank heavens. Come on, let's eat. I'm starving, and it's past noon. Both of them left for the village. As Naruto-kun is well aware, becoming a shinobi requires more than just strength and speed. You have been practicing taijutsu, of course, but you also need to learn ninjutsu. If you would like, I can also teach you those. I train more after I'm done with you, you know. What? After our morning workout, do you continue to train? A boy like you just cannot handle that much work. Your body will suffer harm. No, I'm all right. I have a lot of endurance. I appreciate you offering to teach me anyhow. Thank you. Let's go more quickly now. Ichiraku is waiting, and I'm hungry. The boy ran off, and Guy twitched, shaking his head and following him. Gosh. Naruto-kun. I have yet to lose a race to you. I'm still young. Yosh. That evening Naruto dodged the 4 Chunin guards stationed at the Forest of Death, which was surrounded by a very tall fence that he couldn't normally jump over because it must have electrocuted all the animals inside. Since there were no trees nearby to help him jump, he had no choice but to use a lot of chakra to get to his feet and jump, barely clearing the top, landing on the other side and rolling a few times to lessen the impact. He was up in a flash, both swords drawn and ready, and there didn't appear to be any signs of life in the area. Awaken, Kurama-san. I'll need your assistance if this location is as hazardous as Guy Sensei claims. You shouldn't have come here if it is that dangerous. I need to get better. That doesn't mean that you literally go looking for trouble. Well, it won't hurt to take a look around now that I'm here. This seems like the ideal location for me to practice my stealth. The lynx had appeared out of thin air during his exploration of the forest, and Naruto held his sword as steadily as he could as he slowly backed away from it. The lynx had landed lightly on the branch he was running along, and he hadn't felt its presence at all before it had done so. He couldn't run to the side, because judging by the way it moved, it was obviously more adept than he was at navigating through the trees, and he couldn't jump down, because it would launch itself at him before he landed, and waiting for it to attack was also out of the question, because even if he managed to skewer it while it charged, momentum would ensure that the lynx's attack would hit him. Unless he managed to land a killing blow with his first stab, and that was something he wasn't backing himself on. When his back struck the tree trunk, he let out a silent curse. The lynx lunged with a snarl of triumph, and Naruto flipped the blade and swung with all the strength he could muster. At the same moment, he flipped in the air and landed on the tree next to him with his feet. Using chakra to stick to the wood, he ran up vertically to the next level of foliage, and while the lynx was still confused, he leapt onto a branch and fled through the forest, landing in a clearing a respectable distance away to catch his breath. With adrenaline pumping through his veins, he leaned against a tree, closed his eyes, and started taking deep breaths. I wouldn't do that if I were you. A moment later, Naruto's eyes widened in alarm, and he was encircled by enormous spiders. He looked up to see that they were all over the place, on the branches, and clinging vertically to trees. He must have stumbled straight into their nest, for he drew one of his swords and raised it, then made a hand sign with the other. Bunshin no Jutsu, Taiju Cage. The spider colony became confused by the appearance of several new enemies, so Naruto used their distraction to force chakra to his feet and exploded through them with a cry of victory. Dozens of Narutos appeared all around him and exploded away with loud shouts. No, you idiot. The opposite direction, you're going Farah. He was more surrounded than ever as he ran, with spiders having the numbers to flank all of his clones and the speed to keep up with him. They scurried along the tree tops and the ground at a speed that easily matched his, and Naruto lost the remainder of Kurama's warning as he ducked to avoid a face full of foul smelling and smoking poison shot at him by a spider. You don't understand. Chakra is also being used by them. Additionally, you're sprinting farther into their nest. Then give me your chakra. This is the moment. Naruto let out a deep, savage growl, accelerated to a great speed, and departed from his assailants. After 2 months of nightly trysts into the forest, Naruto was finally prepared to fly alone, so he inhaled deeply as he climbed the fence enclosing the Forest of Death. Kurama-san, no sensing for you today. Are you certain? Those leeches are impossible to detect until it's much too late. Naruto calmly responded, "I've got it covered," while forming 6 cage buncheons and making a hand sign. "Spread out. You're aware of what to do." It had taken Naruto a long time to learn the various applications of his cage buncheon, but the fact that he did not suffer any harm from their deaths and that their experiences could be retrieved was very helpful. Tonight, he was going to use them for reconnaissance and scouting. He leapt into the trees and made his way to the center of the forest, with his clones scattered around him in 100-foot radius. He wanted to reach the tower without using force or coming into contact with any of the forest's lethal residents, and if he came across anything hazardous, his clones would alert him. After 3 months and never attack a spider nest again unless he wanted to die, he noted. He should have known better, especially after the previous incident with the spiders. Naruto jumped backwards off a branch and avoided the giant spider lunging at him. He landed on the ground and drew one of his swords as the spider launched itself at him off the branch. He waited until it was almost upon him before he slashed, his stroke cleaving the spider completely into 2. Breathing, he sheathed his sword and began limping away. He glanced around to orient himself, and since he was very close to gate 23, he moved carefully in the hopes of avoiding any more of the beasts he might have angered with his nightly forays into the forest, which he only did when Guy was away on his missions, and he was certain that he would be shut down if he even got a hint of what Naruto was up to. He reached the gate without incident and turned towards the village. He had only gone a few steps when he sensed a presence near him. He jumped just as 3 kunais struck the spot he had been an instant ago. Twisting in the air, he threw a couple of his own kunai in the direction of the attacker. He saw a short woman with violet hair wearing a large overcoat dodge them by jumping backwards onto a branch. Just as his foot touched the ground, he disappeared in a shunshin. He appeared behind the woman with his sword drawn. He aimed for her neck with the flat of his blade, intending to knock her out. Instead, the woman blocked his blade with ease and countered with a punch to his stomach. That was new. Most of the animals weren't fast enough to keep up with his speed, let alone counter him. However, this woman had managed to counter even his shunshin. He flew backwards, hit a tree and landed heavily on the ground. He was up instantly. Months in the forest had taught him that if he stayed down to catch his breath, he would be dead. He looked up at the woman and smiled. This was going to be fun. He was just about to make his next move when the woman began talking with a smirk. "You're very talented, youngster. Are all the animals upset with you because you've been running around in the forest?" The woman was wearing a Konoha headband, and since she wasn't an enemy at the time and he might get into trouble if he attacked a comrade, Naruto chose to respond while maintaining his defensive stance with his swords raised. "Yeah. Well done, youngster. Most people lack the courage and, more crucially, the abilities to do that." He waited for her to go on, and as she began to walk in the direction of the village, her grin grew. "Calm down. I will not murder you. Let's return to the village, please." Sheathing his swords, he joined her, but he was still cautious. "All right. You haven't dropped your defenses yet. You don't put your blind faith in people." "I like that," she said, giving him a sidelong glance. Naruto said nothing. "What a brat. Are you not able to speak?" "I don't know how to respond to you. When a complete stranger suddenly attacks me, what should I say?" "I guess you could begin with your name." "My name is Anko. I'm Naruto Uzumaki." When she heard his name, her eyes widened a little, and she knew exactly who he was. As they passed through the village, they were met with glares and hostile glances. The villagers appeared to be judging her by her appearance as well, which Naruto felt was unfair because they had a beef with him. Why victimize someone because they were hanging around with someone they didn't like? Did they really hate him that much? "Sorry about this," he said, a little sour. "For what purpose?" she inquired. "This," he said, gesturing to those nearby. "I didn't mean to include you. I didn't anticipate them going this far." Although Anko didn't answer, she gave him an odd look. "Hey, you're a funny child. You are not alone in being hated by these fools." Her response caught Naruto off guard. The villagers' pronounced display of rage, hatred, and unfriendliness was limited to him, and he was certain that he had never witnessed them act in such a manner toward anyone else. Why did the villagers despise her? Was she a Jinchuriki like him, or did she just happen to share a past with him that the villagers were happy to misunderstand and condemn? She stopped in front of a building and stretched languidly, so he didn't get any answers. "This is who I am. See you later." "Hey," he dialed. "What?" she yelled out of her doorway. "Will you spare me?" "What? No. Oh, hurry up, please. What do I gain from it?" "Company." She was taken aback by his response, and he could tell that she was upset about it. It had been a gamble, but it appeared to have paid off. She flicked her fingers and snapped a kunai at him, at a speed that was too fast for him, causing a long, thin cut to gouge through his face. "I'll see you at training ground 11 at 4 tomorrow," she called. "I'll kill you if you're late," and vanished into her house. First guy. Sensei, then her. How in the world did he only meet crazy people? He gaped open, mouthed at the place where she had been standing for a few seconds before turning and making his way to Ichiraku with a loud moan. Her actions had been very different from her own, and it was shocking how easily the brat had been able to control her. Anko walked into her small house and leaned back onto the door she had just closed behind her. She closed her eyes and considered what had happened. On second thought, she understood that the word, manipulate, was incorrect. It was obvious to her that the boy had no real ulterior motives, and in fact, it seemed to her that his response was quite honest. Company. Companionship. Company was obviously what the boy wanted, and he had done the only thing he could by reaching out to someone who was facing a similar fate to himself. But why had she accepted? Was she so lonely that she was taking a 6-year-old boy's offer of companionship seriously? Taking one step at a time was the strategy she was going to employ. She had never been good at determining emotions, and she wasn't going to get any better now. She cursed as she pushed off the door and entered her bedroom, believing that her spar with a fellow comrade the next day would be the end of the matter. After a year after months of diligent work, Naruto was ecstatic as he finished the last strokes of his first attempt at making his own seal, his body trembling with anticipation. Naruto's handwriting was the first issue he had encountered when he started practicing fuinjutsu. The art of fuinjutsu required extremely precise and accurate penmanship, so his first task had been to practice and greatly improve his calligraphy. He had learned the hard way that inaccurate strokes resulted in unintentional explosions. The process for creating a number of practical seals, including storage seals, explosive seals, chakra storage seals, and movement restriction seals, was detailed in the book he had stolen. He had been slowly but surely mastering them one by one. Replicating the seals themselves was an easy task. Understanding the theory behind them was another matter altogether and was something he had to do if he wanted to even dream of deciphering his own 8 trigrams seal. After many months of study, this was his first foray at creating his own seal. He was attempting to make a more powerful version of the standard issue explosive tags by increasing the amount of stored chakra. The standard explosive tags used by shinobi were classified as grade .2 explosives. They were relatively cheap and easy to manufacture. The seal Naruto had come up with could easily be classified as a grade .4 explosive. Increasing the amount of stored chakra was no easy task. He had to design new storage glyphs for the additional chakra load and design additional pathways for them to flow through. Regulatory glyphs had to be added at appropriate locations to prevent overloading of chakra in certain pathways. All in all, Naruto was proud of the design he had come up with. Setting his brush on the floor, he made one final check of his seal array, which had taken him almost 2 months to design, and then he was ready to pump his chakra into it, which could go horribly wrong or very well. He put his palm in the middle of the seal and allowed the chakra to flow. A huge explosion shook the clearing, instantly knocking him back. "Give me your chakra, Kurama-san. I believe my skin has been burned off," Naruto cried in agony. "HMPH. You go now. Without me, boy, where would you be?" His pupils turned into red vertical slits, and the pain subsided and his skin started to heal. After roughly 2.5 years, the civilian council was demanding that he not let Naruto join the academy, while the elder council was trying to turn him into a weapon. In fact, they had been trying to start his training years earlier. Sarutobi sat in his office waiting for Naruto, who would be 9 years old in a few weeks, and it was time to give him the opportunity to become a shinobi. The boy, who must have been a result of training with Maida Guy, was considerably taller and had filled out quite a bit when Naruto knocked on his door and entered. "Sit down, Naruto." Sarutobi took a few drags from his pipe and gazed out the window at Minato's statue. "So, Naruto, you'll turn 9 in 2 weeks, right?" "Yeah. Additionally, children are typically admitted to the ninja academy at that age. So, are you interested in enrolling?" "Of course. Are you certain? You don't have to follow in your parents' footsteps just because they were shinobi. The village also offers a wide range of beneficial occupations for the general public." "Thanks, Gigi, but I want to be a shinobi." All right, then. I'll make all the required arrangements. In 2 weeks, you'll begin." Naruto's face broke into his recognizable smile. "Hey Naruto, a lot of the kids will come from shinobi families and might have had some parental training. To stay up, you'll need to put in a lot of effort." "Gigi, I appreciate the advice. I'll do my best." "Well, That's it, now you can leave. Come see me again in a few days. I'll provide you with any more information you might need. With a huge smile on his face, Naruto got up and walked out of the office. His plan had succeeded, and the elderly man was unaware of his training or would have brought it up. Besides, he was finally going to the academy, which was a big step toward his goal and would allow him to meet other kids who were just like him. On the day of the entrance ceremony, Naruto awoke early, his body trembling with nervousness and excitement for what lay ahead. For the first time in his life, he would be interacting with children his own age. They would be unaware of his status as a Jinchuriki. They were unable to learn of his Jinchuriki status. That was ensured by the laws of the Hokage. Would they follow their parents' example and reject him, or would they engage in conversation with him? In comparison to the other children in the class, how strong would he be? He let out a sigh. There was no reason to be concerned. It was only possible to learn by going. He opened his wardrobe and gazed at his sparse collection of clothes. He sighed again in resignation and put on his normal clothes. A pair of black pants and a fishnet shirt over a black shirt. He had nothing official, and there was nothing he could do about it. He strapped on both his storage pouch and his weapons holster out of habit. He was on the verge of putting on his swords when he realized he would draw undue attention to himself. He was strapping on all his weapons while the other children were getting ready to arrive in formal attire. He slipped out of his window and flew to the roofs, flinging his equipment onto his bed. He felt a little more at ease when the wind rushed against his face. The blonde moved toward the building across from the academy with a speed well beyond his years. He sat on the ledge, watching his peers and gazing down at the square. There were milling people everywhere. The majority of the people in the crowd were kids who were with their parents. A few shinobi milling around in the typical Chunin uniform were also present. He saw a father guide his son through the academy gate while holding his hand. A deep sense of melancholy was evoked by the sight. In another universe, that might have been him. After a few more seconds of staring, he started to shake. He would have been killed if an enemy had attacked him at that precise moment. He jumped down to join the people who would be his classmates for the next few years after having that sobering thought. The throng finally gathered itself after much shouting and jostling by a pair of shinobi. While the parents rushed around at the perimeter of the compound, all of the kids lined up in 2 lines in front of a big, temporary stage. 20 shinobi, all dressed in the village's typical Chunin uniforms, joined the Sandaime as they entered the stage. They were the academy instructors, Naruto surmised. The Jiji began what would undoubtedly turn out to be one of his lengthy and dull speeches. Naruto easily tuned out the old fart and focused on his classmates. He had about 100 of them. How many would actually make it through was a mystery to him. He just knew he would undoubtedly be one of those. As was his custom, his mind drifted back to his training. Because of his training, he was able to block out all superfluous thoughts. He would have to reduce the number of morning training sessions with Guy Sensei now that he had academy classes to attend. On the weekends, he could still train with him. He would also have to shorten his fuinjutsu sessions. To make room for fuinjutsu, less time would need to be spent on ninjutsu. His research into the art of fuinjutsu had advanced significantly and given him unanticipated advantages. His home was now totally secured against trespassers. Only his chakra signature was acknowledged and accepted by the seals. Additionally, he had developed a fair amount of skill in creating explosive tags, storage seals, and chakra restriction seals, all of which, if used effectively, were very helpful in battle. In particular, explosive tags. He was alerted to the end of the speech by a roar of applause, mostly from the parents. He saw the Jiji's right shinobi seize control of the podium. He had a horizontal scar across his face and was of average height and build. Students and parents can now leave. The children have to report to their classrooms tomorrow at 8 in the morning. The lists of classroom allotments have been put up on the notice board. You are requested to check the list if you haven't already. All students will be tested tomorrow to see their current skill levels and are requested to come prepared. That will be all. The majority of the audience moved to the notice boards as soon as he was done. Naruto walked to the side, avoiding the crowd like the plague. He didn't want to be noticed and wanted to remain in the background. He had no intention of provoking the many irate eyes that were on him. The majority of the academy's open space was used as student training grounds. Naruto made his way to the small swing that was also present. He took a seat on the dusty seat and started rocking back and forth slowly. He was relatively close to the stage. The Hokage was immediately encircled by a vengeful crowd of parents, the majority of whom were civilians and mostly women. Naruto could easily figure out what was being discussed. He kept swinging after forcing some chakra into his ears. "Could you let that boy join? I will not let my son be in the same classroom as the demon. And thanks to your ridiculous laws, I can't even warn him about that thing. All I can tell him is to avoid the demon, but my son never listens to me. Who knows what that thing will do to him?" Thus, they were discussing him. He must have been right on the money. He's right. What if he corrupts my daughter? I will not accept this. He must be removed from the academy at once. Enough. As you can see, none of the shinobi parents have a problem with Naruto. So I don't see why you do. Besides, my decision is final. I have already overruled the civilian council. Your petty arguments are not going to make me change my mind. Now leave me. I have better things to do than listen to your pointless complaints. Sarutobi growled with unrestrained vengeance in his they had not anticipated an enraged Hokage. They quickly withdrew after getting the hint. The elderly man turned to face him. Calmly, Naruto looked him in the eyes. By shinobi standards, Naruto was far enough away to be out of earshot. But the old man knew differently, and the blonde could see it. The elderly man was aware that he had heard what was being said. Perhaps he had been less adept at concealing his abilities than he had first believed. Naruto stopped his momentum by digging his heels into the ground. He rose and brushed himself clean. He strolled nonchalantly behind one of the trees supporting the swing, hands in his pockets. The Hokage monument was directly in front of the academy. He was definitely out of his watcher's line of sight now. He transformed himself into a rat and made a cage bunshin without using any hand signs. The bunshin fled in the direction of the exit and continued walking as though nothing had occurred. He dashed into an alley and changed back into his original form as soon as he was safely away from the academy. He was still in disbelief that this trick consistently succeeded in shaking off his Anbu tail. He grinned to himself and headed off to relieve his stress in the forest of death. Iruka was quite anxious. For heaven's sake, he couldn't recall why the Hokage had called him to his office. Perhaps the fact that he had reprimanded a council member's son the previous week was finally getting to him. Iruka muttered a curse to himself. He had been carrying out his duties and making an effort to treat each student fairly. He disciplined the child for misbehaving. The child complaining to his father was unexpected. The Anbu guards nodded at him as he arrived at the door, letting him in. When the door opened, the Hokage, who had been reading a book, looked up. He smiled and gestured for him to sit down. Iruka became less nervous. To the best of his knowledge, the Hokage was not a sadist. Therefore, he was probably not going to get screwed if he was being smiled at. Iruka, I called you here to talk to you about Naruto. Naruto? You mean he said, gradually losing his voice. The Hokage gave him a nod. I made sure that he was in your class. The previous week, Iruka had already mentioned that the Jinchuriki were in his class. He was just reviewing each student's background out of a sense of thoroughness. He was unaware that the boy had been placed under him on purpose. To be honest, he was unable to come up with a valid reason for doing so. Why? Because I know that you would never let personal feelings come before your duty. You would have treated the boy fairly even if you hated him. I don't hate him. I'm a shinobi, not a civilian. I know about seals. The boy is at no fault for what happened to my parents. Once more, the Hokage grinned. Most shinobi know that, but despite that they still shun him. That is what I wanted to talk to you about. Naruto is strong. Very strong. He might even be past Chunin level already. For a boy of his age, that kind of strength was practically unheard of. There were always exceptions, of course, but they were so infrequent that they were easily disregarded. Kakashi Hatake, Itachi Uchiha, Namikaze Minato. Only one generation saw the appearance of such shinobi. What? Impossible. He is only 9. How could age? Yet that is the truth. However, strength isn't everything. He has been alone all his life. He has no friends. He tries to fend off the loneliness by training. This is not good for the boy. I want you to help him. You understand his feelings better than anybody else. He has all the reasons to hate all of us and seek revenge on us. Instead, he trains hard and strives to prove himself to us. I will not let his sacrifice go in vain. He does not know how to trust others and have faith in his comrades. He believes only in his own strength. I want you to change that. I want you to teach him how to have fun and be happy. When a shinobi represses emotions, it always has consequences later. How am I supposed to do something like that? You are the best teacher I have. I have faith in you. You'll figure something out. For a while, Iruka was absorbed in her thoughts as she gazed at the ceiling. Then he gave himself a nod and stood up to go. I'll try my best, Hokage. Sama. Oh, by the way, Iruka, don't tell Naruto that I know how strong he is. He thinks he has pulled the wool over my eyes. I want to see his expression for myself when he finds out how wrong he is. The Hokage laughed a few times in amusement. Iruka shook his head and left. Early the following morning, Naruto awoke. The day before, he had trained more than he ought to have. 10 minutes ago, he was supposed to have arrived at the academy. He quickly got up and changed out of his bloody clothes. He began a series of shunshuns by leaving his window, and in less than a minute, he arrived at the academy. He examined the map that had been put up by the entrance to assist the newcomers. On the first floor, his classroom was the second from the right. He noticed the window was open when he looked up. He pondered whether it was against academy policy to jump through windows. He shrugged, jumped, and bent his knees. An adult was speaking to the students while standing in the front of the classroom. The man's manner gave Naruto the impression that he was the teacher. That was the final thing that crossed Naruto's mind before he collided with the Chunin. Naruto muttered an expletive. He had intended to remain anonymous, not to remove his instructor on the first day of class. He noticed that it was the same person who had announced yesterday when he looked down. With a sheepish look on his face, he was dismissed. Sorry. Didn't see where I was going. The man stood up and gave him a scowl. And would you mind telling me why you chose to come in from the window in the first place? I was late and I saw the window was open and so. The man let out a sigh. Iruka shook his head and said, late on his first day. Kids these days. His voice trailed off. Never mind. We had just finished with introductions and were about to move outside to test taijutsu. Why don't you introduce yourself and then we can go outside, he replied with a grin. Every child had a shocked expression on their face as they gazed at Naruto. His entrance had been rather noisy, to be fair to them. Naruto looked at his peers blankly while nervously scratching his head. What am I supposed to say? Why don't you tell them your name, your likes, dislikes and hobbies and such, and your dream for the future? My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Likes? Well, I like ramen. Dislikes? Don't really have any. Hobbies? None, I guess. Dream for the future. My dream is to become the Hokage. The murmurs ceased. A few of the children started laughing, but the majority continued to stare at him. The loudest laugh came from a child with red hair. You, the Hokage? Please. My dad told me that you were trash of the worst kind and you would never be able to accomplish anything. There is no way someone like you can become someone cool like the Hokage. Naruto raised one eyebrow as he observed the child. Well then, too bad for you that I don't give a flying fuck what your father thinks about me. That's my dream and he can't do jack shit about it. You can tell your father that I dare him to say that to me face.to. Face. There were gasps throughout the room. Once more, Naruto muttered a curse. The insult from the idiot had affected him. In just the first 5 minutes, his plan to avoid the spotlight was blown up, and now the instructor was going to eat him alive. For teaching him so many swear words, he cursed Anko. Asano.kun. I will not have words like that spoken in my classroom again. I am going to talk to your parents about this. And you Naruto. I will not tolerate such filthy language again. You hear me? This is your first and final warning. Now class, let's move. Iruka roared. Naruto raised his head in surprise. The man had sided with him and stood up for him. All he had received was a reprimand for his words. He watched Iruka closely as the rest of the class left, shaking his head in shock and hurling another curse at Anko for corrupting him. He had not anticipated the man. Iruka took them to one of the academy's numerous training grounds. Okay, listen everybody. I am now going to test your taijutsu. You see this circle? You have to fight your opponent inside it. You win if you score more hits or force your opponent outside the circle. Each spar will last for a maximum of 5 minutes. Understood? He got a string of nods in return. A quarter of the group raised their hands in response to the statement, good. Now those of you who have received training in the art of taijutsu before, please raise your hands. Naruto could infer from their attire that the majority of them belonged to one of the numerous clans in the village. Good. That's more than I expected. Let's begin. The rest of you will have to watch. Watch. Observe. And learn. Taijutsu will be one of the first things we're going to teach you. Now, who volunteers for the first spar? Naruto watched the first spar from a distance in the crowd. When the two assumed their positions, his muscles were tingling with anticipation. A moment later, he relaxed his muscles and exhaled in frustration. He could tell by their movements that they were no match for him as soon as the match started. Their forms were full of holes, and they moved slowly. If Guy Sensei had seen them, he would have sobbed. It was the same with the second pair. Even the correct stance was unknown to one of the third pair. Why in the world had he been concerned? They were all awful. he wouldn't even want to fight at their level because it would be so exhausting. With a sigh, he started berating himself in his head for listening to Anko. There was simply no way to trust that woman. She seemed to do everything in her power to ruin his life. As the children around him let out a series of gasps, he snapped out of his reverie and returned his attention to the proceedings. A boy was beating the living daylights out of his opponent while sporting the Uchiha symbol on his back. An Inuzuka. Whispers of Uchiha genius began to circulate among the kids as a number of girls cooed at him. Naruto let out another sigh. He could have beaten him with his hands bound and his eyes blinded because the Uchiha was so full of openings. He moved away from the throng, approached a tree, and took a moment to observe it. Then he struck it 3 times with his head. This was not fair to him. Not after his training had taken so much effort. "Sensei," he exclaimed. "I quit my match." Then, ignoring the looks he was getting, he sat down and pretended to sleep. He had intended to remain in the center of the class and avoid attention, but he was unable to accomplish that because these guys were so frail. He was going to doze off during every lesson and exam. Long ago, he had already learned everything the academy could teach him. He had no choice but to wait now. For enacting the law that forbade early graduation, he cursed the Gigi. He could train later into the night if he could catch up on his sleep in the academy, which was the only bright spot in the chaos that was his life. It was time to start manipulating the elements. When he felt someone standing in front of him, he opened his eyes. A child with a spiky ponytail caught his attention as he looked up. "Sensei." The child yelled. I was his opponent. He then sat down beside him and shut his eyes. Naruto also closed his eyes and shrugged. As Naruto left, Iruka observed him. If the Hokage was right about the child's strength, he couldn't really blame him, but was hitting his head really necessary? When another child joined Naruto, his eyes grew wide. Was he not Anara? "Sensei." The child yelled. I was his opponent. The child took a seat and fell asleep. He made a concerted effort to avoid hitting himself. The Nara were renowned for their carefree outlook on life. "Oi! You two! Get up right now and get back here!" "Sensei, everyone is too strong for me. I can't win against them and I won't become better by watching them, so let me sleep," Naruto replied. Iruka jerked. The Nara continued to sleep. He roared, "Both of you back here now." Once more, he twitched. His yell had been successful, but as they made their way back, they were both dragging their feet. 3 years was going to be a long time. Naruto was startled out of his sleep by a kind of stampede. Every child was getting out of the classroom. He assumed it was lunch when he looked up at the time. He was waking up beside the child with the spiky ponytail. He inquired, "Where's Choji?" "Who? Choji?" "The guy who was eating chips throughout class." "Went out, I guess. Troublesome. Help me find him?" "Sure. Don't have anything else to do anyway." He took out a lunch bag from somewhere and said, "Don't you want to eat lunch?" "Didn't bring any. Besides, I never eat at this time." The child pivoted and turned to face Naruto. "Why?" He shrugged as though that clarified the question. "I'm an orphan," he said. Surprisingly, the other boy gave a sympathetic nod. "Lucky you. Here. You can share with me. My mom gave me too much. Name's Shikamaru, by the way." Naruto. "No, it's okay. Your mom packed it for you, not for me." "Troublesome. I told you there's too much. Have some. If I don't finish it, my mom will eat my head when I get home." Okay if you say so." They nearly ran into Choji as they were strolling through the park. "There you are, Shikamaru. I thought you would be still waiting for me in classroom. I went to get my lunch from mom. She was waiting at the gate," he said as he held up a huge bag. "It's okay. This is Naruto. He forgot his lunch, so share some of yours." "Sure. Hi, I'm Choji. Now let's go eat. How about that tree?" "Works for me." Shikamaru merely gave a grunt. When the bell announcing the end of classes rang, Naruto stood up. As he approached the window and prepared to exit through it, he felt a hand resting on his shoulder. Iruka. Sensei was the one. "What is with you and windows? Come on and use the door like a normal person." Iruka took the lead in leaving. Parents were gathered to take their kids home as Naruto got closer to the gate. "That is why I wanted to use the window," Naruto muttered. Iruka. Sensei appeared to hear him, and he gave him a strange look as he looked down at him. He seemed to understand somehow. "Come on, let's go somewhere to eat. My treat. I noticed that you didn't eat a proper lunch. You must be hungry. Do you like yakiniku?" "Never eaten it." "You'll like it then, come on." Naruto gazed at the mouthwatering dish that was set out in front of him. It was the best smell he had ever experienced. Simply put, it looked too good to be real. He looked up at the scarred Chunin and asked, why? Isn't it okay for a teacher to treat his student to some food? Maybe. But definitely not until they get to know each other. Well, I'm a bit different. You'll be doing this for the rest of the class as well? A vague, depends. Maybe, maybe not, was Iruka's response. Naruto gazed at the yakiniku plate. His system was able to withstand nearly every poison that shinobi are aware of. He would be able to eat the food as long as the poison had no taste. He shrugged and went to work. That evening Naruto stood and rapped loudly on a door. The door opened and Anko appeared drowsy. As she opened the door for him, she growled, "What do you want, kid? Why the hell didn't you tell me how pathetic the kids at the academy were?" She responded coolly, ignoring Naruto's glare at her, "You never asked, brat. Forget pathetic, they're so bad I could beat all of them using just my little finger. Oi, if you woke me up just to bitch, then get out." Ignoring her, Naruto sank into her couch. "So what are you going to do? Show them how good you really are and hope the Sandame overlooks his own law to let you graduate early? Hell no, there's this Uchiha in my class. Among all those pathetic idiots, this guy is the least pathetic. Everyone is calling him a genius and most of the girls flock around him as if they want to marry him or something," said Naruto with a shiver. "There's no way I want that. I'm going to scrape through every test and exam graduation." "Wait, you're saying the girls in your class are after this Uchiha? Weren't you listening?" "Yeah." "Why?" Anko's face gradually lit up with a cunning smile. When Naruto saw it, he began to perspire. He was aware of that smile and knew it meant nothing positive. Naruto.kun, I think it's time Anko. Ni-chan gave you the talk. After 2 weeks Naruto called out, "Iruka. Sensei," as he threw away his 7th bowl of ramen. "Yeah, what? Why are you doing this?" "Doing what?" "Taking me out for dinner and spending time with me. Because I want to." "Huh?" Iruka's eyes took on a distant expression, and he fell silent. "Naruto, I'm an orphan like you. I know what it feels like to be alone. I don't want you to make the same mistakes I made." He placed some cash on the table and stood up to go. "Which were?" Iruka let out a sigh. He had nearly pulled off a cool escape. He rarely had the opportunity to do that. To grow up to become a characterless boring person whose only hobby is his work. Naruto said, "Come on. You're not that bad." Well actually you are. You even work while making dinner for yourself." "Hey wait. That's it," with a look of realization on his face. "What? Didn't you tell me that most shinobi develop some kind of quirk or the other to cope with the job? What's your point? Your quirk is working. You work more to handle the stress of work. Wait. That's actually stupid. Fuck. That's not a quirk. Sorry sensei, but you're just boring." Iruka jerked. After 2 weeks Naruto screamed, "Enough already. I'm going to die at this rate," as he fell to the ground in the center of one of Konoha's numerous training grounds. Anko purred as she held the kunai in her hands. "Really? That's all you got, kid? Pathetic," she said. "Look at me." Naruto snarled angrily, pointing to himself. He was bleeding from several wounds, and his clothing was in ruins. "A little bit of blood never hurt anyone, brat. How are you going to learn otherwise?" "A little bit? You've cut me in 15 different places? Your fault for being so slow. Forgive me for not being as fast as a Junin." Anko sang, "Excuses, excuses," as she approached and settled down beside him. With a sigh, Naruto returned to the ground. The training ground was quiet for a long time. He looked up at the afternoon sky and said softly, "You're completely crazy, you know?" "I know," she said, avoiding eye contact with him. After a long pause, he asked, "What happened? You be a shinobi long enough, you become like this. None of the shinobi I've met are anything like you. Don't worry, kid. We're all fucked up on the inside. It's the only way to cope with this job. Sooner or later, you'll have to see and do things which you're too ashamed to talk about. Look at Guy, for instance." "Then why did?" "Because it's the only thing I know how to do and it's the only thing I've been doing my whole life. And I also happen to be quite good at it. I'm having second thoughts about my career choice now. If you want a long and happy life, then quit now. You're doing a really good job of selling the career to me. I'm not. You shouldn't do it if you're not cut out for it. That's just another early death for the village." "And am I cut out for it?" For the first time in the conversation, she turned to face him and asked, "You?" "Yeah, I think you'll do well." Shame though. I have no intention of ending up like you. I'd rather choose my focus of insanity rather develop one over time." "Good luck with that, Kid. After a week. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and I've been a teacher for quite a few years now. There's a difference between a stupid idea and a novel idea. No, this one is definitely stupid. Naruto slurped the last of his bowl of ramen and asked, "Are you going to help me or not?" "Help you decide what personality quirk you want to develop. A quirk which will help you cope with the harshness of shinobi life. No, I think I'll pass on this one." "Oh, come on, you're my teacher, aren't you? Isn't it your job to help me with things like this?" "No, my job is to drill the basics of shinobi life into you so that you won't die when you go out into the field. Not to encourage my students to take their first steps towards insanity." "Bah. This is the boring side of you talking. Don't you have a fun side or something?" "Enough," Iruka said, setting some cash down on the counter and rising to his feet. "I've got work to do. I don't have time for this. See you tomorrow. Don't be late." A loud cry came from behind Iruka, who had just arrived at the entrance. He turned to face his pupil and arched an eyebrow. "That's it. I've decided. Thanks, sensei. You're a genius." Before he could ask him what he meant by that, Naruto sped off. Iruka mentally rewrote the exchange and reviewed his final remarks. His mind started to process the ramifications of what he had said, and he gasped in surprise. What had he done, my god? The following day, "Naruto, you're late to class by an hour. What happened?" "You see, sensei. Yesterday on my way home a bird shat on me. I decided that I deserved revenge and I chased it all the way to Taiga. Just got back. Man, I'm tired." Iruka stared at him in amazement. It was a monster he had made. Kakashi Hitaki sneezed. "After 6 months, come home for dinner tonight." Turning, Naruto gazed at Shikamaru. "What? No, man. I've got stuff to do." "You always have something to do. Your tone is especially unsuitable for sarcasm. At least make an effort. Stop being so troublesome, will you? My mom is biting my head off about meeting all my friends. If you don't come tonight, my life's going to be hell for more than a week." In order to prevent Iruka from seeing him speak, Naruto turned to face Choji and put his head behind the student seated in front of him. "Aren't you going?" "Me? Shikamaru's parents have known me my whole life. Our dads were on the same team." "Great. There you go. Choji's coming," he informed Shikamaru. "Not Choji, man. My mom wants to meet my other friends and you're the only option I have. Trust me on this. Your parents don't want to meet me." "What do you mean? Just trust me on this, okay?" "But my mom does want to meet you." Naruto swallowed his response and gave Shikamaru's words considerable thought. He paused for a moment before asking, "So you've told your mom about me?" Shikamaru complained, "Yeah. That's what I've been saying this whole while." "You told her my name?" "No, tell her my name and then see if she still wants me over." "Why do?" Their conversation was cut short when 3 chalk pieces thundered into the wall an inch above their heads. "Quiet back there!" Iruka yelled. Naruto hissed, later, while the 3 of them gazed naively at the blackboard. An hour later, Shikamaru yelled, "What's your problem? Just come for fucking dinner," as they broke for lunch. "And I'm telling you that it's better if I don't." "Okay now, calm down you two. There's no need to fight," Choji said, eagerly munching on his crisps, a clear indication that he was anxious. "Naruto, what's the problem? Look, adults and I don't do well together." "Why?" Naruto muttered, "I don't know," before turning and leaving. Shikamaru quickly leaned forward and took hold of his friend's shoulder. "Look, I don't know about other adults but my parents are okay. You can trust me on that." The conversation paused for a long time. After a while, Naruto turned to face Shikamaru. "Okay then. I'll be there. Dad, you got a minute?" With a sigh, Shikaku Nara opened his eyes. "Your mother know I'm here?" "No, she's looking for you in the forest." What do you want?" "Mom wanted me to invite my friends for dinner, so I asked Naruto, and he wasn't very keen. Insisted that I let you know about him beforehand." "Naruto?" "Yeah." "Naruto Uzumaki?" "Yeah." His dad sat up and gave him a look. "I see. Don't blame the kid. Sure, bring him over. Shouldn't be a problem." "You know why he didn't want to come?" "Yes." "Why?" "Son, if I tell you that, then I would be committing a capital offense." "You're joking. Do I look like I'm joking? Why would there be a capital law regarding Naruto? That's all you're getting out of me. Bring him over if you want to. I'll have a word with your mom as well, but you don't need to worry. She's a shinobi and she knows how it works." When Naruto entered the Nara clan compound, he was apprehensive. He was completely unsure of how the evening would unfold, but it couldn't possibly be good. He had been aware that this would eventually occur. In every part of his life, his partner's presence was ubiquitous. It was what he got in exchange for the power. Upon arriving at Shikamaru's house, he stood unsurely on the porch. He was unsure of what to do for once. He was not entirely comfortable with the fact that he could see the end of his friendship was imminent. Although his heart appeared to have some difficulty accepting that conclusion, his mind had already come to terms with it. A shout cut through his thoughts. "Hey Naruto!" With his right hand flicking up to his imaginary sword, Naruto spun around. Once more, he had been caught entirely unprepared. He had to learn to better regulate his feelings. Choji was the one, as well as his dad, who had undoubtedly observed his movements. His laugh was sheepish. "Sorry, you scared me there," he said. He stepped forward a few paces, bowed, and said, "Akamichi-san." Choji's dad laughed. Now, there's no need for all that, especially from my son's friend. It's good to finally meet you. My wife and I have heard a lot about you from Choji here," he said while patting his son's head. Surprised, Naruto looked up. He had certainly not anticipated such a response. Perhaps the world wasn't as hopeless as he believed. Perhaps there were regular people who didn't despise him as much. Shuza yelled, "Come on. Let's go in," and escorted the two academy students to the porch. He walked straight in without bothering to knock. "Booming, we're here," he said. "Come and see who we've brought." She bustled out of a side room, a small, attractive woman in her late 30s. "Good, you're here. It's nice to see you again," she replied. She quickly turned Naruto on. "And you must be Naruto. It's great to finally meet you. I would really like to say that I have heard a lot about you, but frankly my idiot of a son doesn't tell me anything. Which reminds me. That boy is off hiding somewhere. You have." Naruto gradually became distracted by Shikamaru's mother's speech. He was only able to concentrate on the welcoming smile he had received. Perhaps his predictions would turn out to be false. At the Nara porch, Naruto exclaimed, "Thank you, Mr. and Mrs. Nara. It was amazing. I've never had a home-cooked dinner before. Everyone was leaving for home after dinner." "Not a problem, sweetie. It was great to have someone actually appreciate my cooking. These two slackers never say a word," laughed Yoshino. Naruto yelled, "Bye," then, as he left. As he walked down his porch, Shikamaru said, "Hey Choji, got a minute?" Both Choji and his father turned to face him with disdain. "Just wanted to talk to Choji about something," Shikamaru told Shuza. "Of course," Shuza replied politely, grinning. "I'll just walk on ahead. Choji can catch up later." "Mom, Dad. I'll be in a minute." His father called out to him, "Take your time," and his parents returned to his home. As they followed Shuza at a safe distance, Choji inquired, "What did you want to talk about?" "It's about Naruto. You spoke to your father about him?" "Yeah. My father came straight out and said that he knew the reason Naruto was nervous and said that he couldn't tell me. Refused to say a word, no matter how many times I asked. Mine was worse." "What do you mean?" "He said that he could tell me but he would be committing a capital offense if he did so." "You mean there's a law about Naruto?" "Seems to be so." "But why? He's just a normal guy." "Oh come on, he's the least normal guy in our entire class. He always says he's busy with something or the other and I don't think he's lying when he says so." "Well yeah, that's there. But that's not anything bad. We all have something we don't want to talk to others about." Shikamaru let out a sigh. "You're always too optimistic. And you're always too paranoid, with reason. That's what you say. Let him be. I don't think he'll like it if you try to pry." Wasn't intending to. Too troublesome. I don't think I would find out anything if I tried anyway. He's much smarter than he lets on. HMPH. As if. I know you. Once you can't figure something out, you can't let it go until you solve it. I can. If I know I'm invading someone's personal space by doing so, which in this case, it seems I am. Relax, will you? You're over. Thinking things as usual, just let him be. Shikamaru let out another sigh. I guess you're right, he hasn't even done anything yet. After 6 months, when Iruka entered the Hokage's office, she saw the elderly man occupied with his paperwork. As Iruka sat down, the Hokage put down his pen, stood up, and moved to the window. "Iruka, I called you here about Naruto. I haven't had the chance to talk to Naruto in recent times. The boy seems to have forgotten me now that he's joined the academy. Just wanted to ask you about him. How's he doing?" "Well, I don't really know how he was before he joined the academy, so I really can't comment on that. Other than that, he's pretty much a normal kid. generally keeps to himself and doesn't interact much with the other students, but that in itself isn't anything alarming. Many students are quite shy at that age. He has made a couple of friends and he spends all his time with them in the academy. I have no idea whether he meets them outside the academy. Frankly, I have no idea what he does once classes are over, but he always gives off the impression of being busy with something. I'm not sure whether I should believe him or not. I see. And about what I discussed earlier, what steps have you taken? I didn't do anything much actually. Which, I realize now in hindsight, was a good thing. From what I can gather, Naruto is an extremely private person and I'm sure he'll react very severely to any attempts to gain an insight into his doings. He also happens to be vehemently independent and doesn't like to be told what to do. While that is a good thing for a boy of his age, it may cause problems once he is assigned to his team. The main problem, however, is not his personality. What is it? He is consistently last in every single written examination and he either flat out refuses to participate or performs extremely lackadaisically in practical tests. Based on his scores, one can judge him to be a complete idiot, which I know, through our interactions, he isn't. I will not comment about the practical tests, but I am certain that he is purposely undermining himself in the written examinations. While I can understand the need to hide one's skills to a certain extent, undermining oneself to be the bottom of the class is a concept I cannot completely fathom. Humor him for the time being, Iruka. His true skills will come out some time or the other. But you still haven't answered my question. What did you do? I initially took him out for dinner a couple of times just to get a grasp of his personality. Once I got a grasp of the person he was, I realized that the thing he craved for most was company. The same thing I wanted back when I was a child. So I gave it to him. I was an adult who took out time to interact with him and respected his opinions. Given the amount of time it took him to open up to me, I may even suggest that he may have severe trust issues. Not surprising given his upbringing, but once again something which may cause issues once he joins a team. I see. Any idea regarding the beef he has with me? I could detect quite a bit of hostility from him the last time we met. Hostility towards you? I do. Iruka, I have been doing this since before I was born. I can tell when somebody has a problem with me. Especially if the person in question is a child. Iruka closed his mouth in reprimand. Swallowing his spittle, he continued, "My apologies, Hokage. Sama. I did not mean it that way. Naruto speaks of you very rarely and never angrily at that. That was the only reason for my previous comment." I see. I am sorry as well. I should not have snapped at you. You have done a commendable job. Now go. I need to complete this dastardly paperwork. Iruka left with the impression that Hokage was working diligently on his paperwork while Naruto was restless. He laughed aloud when he saw the image that blossomed in his mind. For a moment, the Anbu guards gave him a strange look before turning back to scanning the area for any indications of danger. One of the least bizarre things they had witnessed shinobi do was to laugh spontaneously. After a year early on a Saturday morning, Naruto stood at the gate of Konoha, waiting for Guy Sensei. He approached the gatekeeper's booth, bored with his vigil, and peered inside. They were both asleep as usual. Oi! Azumo-san, Katetsu-san, wake up. Guy Sensei will be here any minute and I don't want to hear him shout about unyouthfulness so early in the morning. They both snapped to attention and glanced around blearily. Azumo knocked him on the head after Katetsu flipped him and scratched his head. You didn't have to do that, kid. Naruto gave him a disbelieving glance. You seriously don't mind being woken up by shouts about unyouthfulness? Sheesh, trembled Katetsu. He said, sorry. You're right. That would suck. Thanks I guess, while sheepishly massaging his head. Why do you two always take this detail anyways? It's got to be the most boring chore in the village. Nah kid. Wait till you have to do D ranks. Besides, this job is an honorable duty which is only given to the most trusted of Chunin, said Katetsu with pride. Azumo jerked his thumb at Katetsu and said, that's bullshit. We're here because this piece of shit is too lazy to do anything else and thanks to him I get stuck here as well every day. Naruto said, why don't you just leave him hanging? When Guy, accompanied by a miniature version of Azumo, arrived at the gate, Azumo's response was drowned out by thunderous footsteps. Naruto exclaimed, oh god, he multiplied, with alarm. Katetsu and Azumo laughed. Guy pointed to the tiny representation of himself and said, good morning, my youngest student. Please meet Rock Lee. He is in my Genin team and will now train with us. Lee, if you want to accomplish your dream, then you must work at least as hard as Naruto-kun here. He has been doing this for 5 years now. You have a lot of catching up to do. Naruto interrupted, "Are you two related or something?" "Yash. I am honored that you consider me worthy enough to be Guy Sensei's relative, but the answer to your question is in the negative," Lee yelled. "Yash. Naruto-kun, it is an honor to meet you. Guy Sensei has told me a lot of boo." Naruto committed one of his greatest errors in life at that precise moment. He ignored Lee and started contrasting his looks with Guy's. Their eyebrows were identical. The same hair. The same attire. It was the same voice. What prevented them from being related? It wasn't until much later that he noticed Lee had paused his conversation and was staring at him as though he was waiting for an answer. "Huh? You said something?" he asked, bringing his attention back to the discussion. As the wind started to blow loudly and a crow passed them cawing loudly, there was a profound silence among them. Naruto was unable to anticipate the long-term effects of his mistake. "Yash. Naruto-kun. What an unbelievably cool and hip attitude you have. I henceforth proclaim you as my eternal rival," Lee yelled. Naruto started to perspire. This was not fair to him. It was too much for Guy alone. Katetsu and Azumo's snickers turned into full-fledged giggles. "That's enough, Lee. It is good that you have found an eternal rival, but you are way too early to challenge him. Now let's begin. Yash." A cloud of dust, a bewildered Naruto, an ecstatic Lee, and giggling Azumo and Katetsu were all left behind when Guy vanished. Lee yelled, "Yash, wait for me, Guy Sensei," as he chased his mentor. "He's got to be an illegitimate child or something," Naruto whispered. Trying not to laugh, Katetsu wheezed, "Are you crazy? Can you even imagine a guy doing that?" Azumo exclaimed, "You never know. Alcohol can bring down all barriers," while he struggled to control his laughter. Naruto muttered, "Can alcohol overcome that? I have to try it sometime." As Katetsu watched, Azumo got up and left the booth, saying, "Oi, you're too young to drink, and on that note you're also too young to know about sex as well. What have you been reading?" In a low voice, Naruto muttered something. "What's that? Louder, please." Naruto blushed and muttered, "I said that Anko Nichan already gave me the talk. You don't need to do it." Azumo and the child both started laughing again. "Anko? As in Anko Mitarashi? Are you saying Anko Mitarashi gave you the talk?" "Kid, I feel truly sorry for you," Azumo said. "What the fuck do you mean sorry? Dude, Anko gave him the talk. I'm jealous. Kid, was she wearing that overcoat when she—" Naruto left a roaring Azumo and Katetsu behind as he squeaked off after Guy and Lee. "After a year, oi, Naruto, you sure you'll be okay today? I have never ever seen you fight before, and now you turn up on the day of the graduation exam with a couple of swords. Sure you can handle those without cutting yourself? And how come you're on time today? You're always late," Kiba growled at a sobbing Naruto. It was the day of the academy's practical exams for graduation. Naruto had mastered the written sections with ease. Naruto had removed his body weights for the first time in years. With this test, he was not taking any chances. He was more than prepared to advance. You say something? Oh, fuck off, you annoying bastard. You heard exactly what I said? Can you use those swords?" "Maybe," Drew led Naruto. "Damn you, yo." Shikamaru, who was sitting next to Naruto in the last row, said, "Calm down, Kiba. Quit being a bother. You know he won't tell you anything unless he wants to. You're better off worrying about yourself." "I was just trying to help a friend, if he do." Naruto said, "Sorry, Kiba. I was just kidding. I'll be fine. Don't worry about me." As Iruka Sensei entered the classroom. "Hello everyone. I hope all of you are properly rested and ready for this exam. First you will be tested on your taijutsu. Then your weapon skills, and finally your ninjutsu. To ensure no bias, I will be conducting the tests for Classroom B. Mizuki. Sensei will be the one taking yours. Good luck to all of you. Now you should head outside. Mizuki. Sensei will be waiting there for you." Everyone was rushing for the door. Iruka mouthed, "Good luck," as she glanced at Naruto. Naruto gave him a confident smirk in return. Shaking his head, Iruka twitched and left. Kiba hurried off in the direction of the front of the line, while Naruto hung back with Shikamaru and Choji. Once more, Choji was consuming chips quickly, which was a clear indication of his anxiety. "Rather than me, shouldn't you be worried, Shikamaru? Do you even know taijutsu?" "I don't really care whether I pass or not. Thinking about it is too troublesome." "Whatever, man. I just don't think your mom will be too happy if you fail." "You don't need to remind me." Slipping into the crowd, Naruto positioned himself close to the front to observe. The class size had shrunk to roughly 35 pupils from the initial 50. He observed Mizuki putting each child through their paces individually. Even though the majority of them had improved since joining, they were still no match for him. They never considered improvisations and always adhered to the fundamental academy taijutsu style, which Naruto had not even bothered to learn. He had no idea how they were going to survive missions. He assumed that each of their Junin senseis would discipline them before sending them on combat missions. Someone called Naruto's name. He entered the circle nonchalantly and waited there. Mizuki sneered as she glanced at him. He reached into his pocket and took out a kunai. "For you, brat, I'm going to hold a very special test. Let's see how you hold up against this." The children eagerly awaited their arrival. Previously, none of the examinees had encountered a kunai. Naruto assumed a slack posture and yawned. Mizuki charged at a speed no pre. Genin could match after realizing that his taunt had been disregarded. A voice warned, "Naruto, look out." Choji was the one. There was no need for it. After stepping calmly around the initial stab, Naruto quickly punched him in the jaw in retaliation. The counter landed with a gentle thump, and Mizuki's head was knocked back. Furious, the Chunin tried to cut Naruto's chest with a feint led by his right foot. Naruto sidestepped the attack with a graceful backward sway and used the heel of his hand to slam Mizuki's wrist. From the Chunin's grasp, the kunai exploded, spinning pointlessly to the ground. Mizuki snarled in agony, leapt back to clear some ground, and started to circle the blonde like a predator pursuing its victim. "You surprised me there, demon. You're better than what I thought you would be. I suppose that was expected given what you are. One day I shall make sure that you join your parents in hell." All of Naruto's slackness vanished as he tensed up. He put one hand on his sword's handle. "Take back what you said about my parents. Touchy are we? I suppose even one such as you would have feelings for its parents. I guess it's a good thing they're dead. They're better off not seeing what their offspring has become." "Goodbye," Naruto growled. Naruto shifted his weight forward and dug his toes into the ground. He started to draw his sword while bending his knees slightly. Naruto had nearly Junin speed thanks to years of training with steadily increasing body weights. He charged, pushing his toes back. Time was passing normally from his point of view. Naruto had just vanished from the minds of Mizuki and the other Genin. A moment later, he spun and completed his draw behind Mizuki. His blows lacked much force due to his small size and tone of muscles. Naruto quickly and accurately made up for that. With momentum, too. His spin had sufficient momentum to sever solid wood. As it arced toward the unwary Chunin, his fully drawn sword gleamed and flashed in the sunlight. The blade was only a few inches from cutting blood when a gloved hand stopped it in its tracks. The hand belonged to a Konoha Anbu member, who was dressed in an ox mask. "That's enough, Uzumaki. Sheath your weapon now." With a startled yelp, Mizuki leapt away, panting. Even the blonde's movements had been too much for him to follow. Furthermore, he was sufficiently experienced in the field to piece together what had just happened. "Ox-san, I'm warning you. Get away from me before I do make you do so," Naruto snarled angrily. "Boy, I have been watching you since you were 6. I know the limit of your abilities. Now sheath your sword before I'm forced to do it for you." "Wrong. You know only what I let you see. I have been slipping away from your watch to train for years now. I'm warning you again." Ox gripped Naruto's sword more tightly. Naruto streamed a burst of Fudan chakra into his blade while cursing. Ox immediately dropped the sword and took a quick, unsteady step back. And Naruto only required that. He had only survived fights with Guy and Anko by learning to deal accurate and cutting counters and by perfecting the art of taking advantage of the opponent's openings because he lacked speed and power from his training weights. With all the force he could muster, he spun around and struck the unsteady Ox with the butt of his sword, knocking him back a few feet. Naruto continued to spin, pulled out his second katana, and was ready to jump at Mizuki when 3 more Anbu materialized. 2 kunai were held against his throat while a tanto blocked his blade. "That's enough, Uzumaki. Stand down." Mizuki's knees trembled as he gazed at Naruto in terror. It was obvious to him that he had just made a fortunate escape. Naruto asked without showing any signs of fear, "You guys keep popping up like rabbits, don't you?" In stunned silence, the other Genins observed. The brief altercation had been difficult for nearly all of them to follow, and they were honestly perplexed by what was happening. But some had figured out how to interpret the battle. Among them was Shikamaru, who volunteered to assist his friend. Shoji followed Shikamaru wherever he went. Anbu-san, Naruto was provoked first. Sensei is equally at fault here. Get back, Shikamaru. This doesn't involve you. When Ox said, enough is enough, he withdrew a kunai and struck Naruto in the butt, knocking him unconscious. He said to his co-workers, to the Hokage, while he picked up the unconscious blonde. Sarutobi bellowed at the young man seated in front of him, how could you attack your own comrades like that? I'm so. Silence. You incapacitated an Anbu and tried to kill an instructor. These are not minor offenses. Be you. Quiet. Don't try that on me. I know exactly how strong you are. I know about Guy, Anko and the Forest of Death. Just because you have power does not mean you can misuse it like that. Look. I said I'm sorry and I actually mean it. What else can I do? I can't take back my actions now, can I? And how do you know about my training? I have my ways and your sorry doesn't cut it. Turning on your own comrade is the worst thing a shinobi can do. Do I? I know Gigi. I know exactly how wrong my actions were and I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it and I would take it back if I could. I understand and I'm truly sorry. It was just that Mizuki insulted my parents. I couldn't take that sitting down, said Naruto. So you attacked him? He attacked me first. Pulled moves that would have killed any other kid my age. What was I supposed to do? You shouldn't have fallen for his taunts. Naruto yelled. Go fuck yourself, you old man. His rage finally erupting after years of suppression. I've been taking shit from this village from the day I was born and I didn't say a thing. Now I retaliate a bit and you act as if I committed treason. It's more complicated than that, Naruto. You can't Jew. This is because of what's in me, isn't it? I display a hint of violence and you all assume that I'm being taken over. Sarutobi fell silent in shock. How? Who? This CA. I know. And I've known for a long while. No thanks to you. And then you even go ahead and spout all that bullshit about trust and whatnot. Sarutobi's worst nightmare was becoming a reality. At last, the boy was responding to the horrors that had been done to him, but it wasn't a positive response. Although it was encouraging that he was at last expressing his suppressed feelings, the intensity of his rage was concerning. He had to soothe the boy. Additionally, learn how the boy came to know his own secret. Furthermore, it was certain that the civilian council would demand the boy's blood. Not everyone in the council was going to be as pleased. He had no desire to repeat the explanation of Minato's seal to them. Naruto, I just wanted for you to have a normal childhood way. What the fuck do you mean normal? Your bloody village tried to kill me again and again. What's normal about that? You should have told me that day at the hospital. I didn't know how to tell you. I didn't know how you would react. How was I supposed to tell a 4-year-old that he was possessed by a demon? Meaning you didn't trust me enough to tell me. It wasn't a matter of trust. It was a question of what you would do with the knowledge, and at 4, your mind was definitely not ready for it. Ha! Guess when I found out? You don't Maya. Yes. Who told you? That's what you've wanting to ask the whole while, isn't it? That's all you care about. You don't realize how much I care about you. Do you know what I've done for you? It's just that I trust you to act morally because I know you. Do you not understand? What do you get? I'm not upset with the other villagers, and I never claimed you hadn't done anything for me. I'm mad at you and you alone. I thought the world of you once. Then I discover that you have been keeping something as significant from me. What on earth did you think I would do? I told you before that I did it to give you a Nor. As I previously stated, I don't give a damn about the reasons. The fact that the only person I trusted lied to me is all that matters to me. Naruto then rose and bounded out. The Hokage's office was silent for a long time. Oh Minato, how I have failed you, Sarutobi said in a distressed whisper. Guy was reading one of his many taijutsu scrolls at home when he was startled by a knock on his door. He had few friends, and none of them were the visiting kind, so he put down the scroll and went to his door, opening it to find his youngest student Naruto there, looking very exhausted and dejected. Hey Guy. Sensei, is it okay if I stay here for a while? My young student, of course. Come in, please. His student gave its springs a good shake as he slumped in and fell onto his couch. How are you, Naruto? Sensei, I'm all right. I'm simply not in the mood to talk. I see. Sometimes it was better to let people stew than to try to butt in, so Guy calmly sank into the couch beside the blonde and picked up his scroll once more. But this time, Naruto stewed for much longer than he had anticipated, and the boy remained silent for over an hour. What's the point, Sensei? Guy kept his eyes on his scroll. Of what? Of everything. My life's just been an endless cycle of training. I never got to have any of the fun other kids have. All those years and none of it matters now. I'm not even going to be made a shinobi. What do I do now? Why won't you be made a shinobi? I tried to kill the teacher testing our taijutsu. I see. That was quite an unyouthful thing to do. Please don't. I can't handle your youth shit right now. Setting the scroll aside, Guy looked at his student. Tell me what happened. Naruto informed him. When his student revealed the entire story, Guy remarked, that was incredibly stupid of you. Guy had never been one to hold back when speaking. I know. Not to mention treasonous, I know. Why did you never talk to me about all this? What was the point? The point was that this wouldn't have happened. His student didn't say anything. Naruto, I know you're not stupid. You know what most of the village thinks of you. Such actions will not be without repercussions. Fighting with the only person who could have helped you was definitely not a smart move. Look, I get it already. I fucked up, I don't nay. No, you don't get it. Situations like this happen all the time out in the field. Screw-ups are a part and parcel of being a shinobi. Sitting around and moping about it is not going to get you anywhere. If you want to fix it, then go out and do something about it. Silently, with his mind racing with ideas, Naruto gazed at his mentor. His face gradually lit up with a slow smile. Sensei, you sometimes actually have some useful advice. I try to do my best. Now if you would just spouting that shit about youth. Guy jerked. With a groan, Sarutobi eased himself into his chair. The council meeting had not gone well. Naruto should be sentenced and prevented from graduating, according to half of them. The others insisted that it was impossible to waste a Jinchuriki with such talent. It was unprecedented for a pre-genin to hit an Anbu agent. To be honest, he occasionally regretted giving them the degree of authority they currently held. The Kage's remarks were nothing short of the law, and the majority of the other villages were considerably more militarized. Following an hour of discussion, the meeting was adjourned and rescheduled for the following day. The postponement was merely a charade. There would be a lot of backroom politics during the time it allowed. Money was going to be exchanged and deals would be made. The majority of the clan leaders avoided using such strategies. The majority of shinobi disliked politics and wished to stay out of it. However, some had jumped right in because they thought it was a power play. The most active leaders were civilians, as well as the most hazardous ones. The council could make his life very difficult, but they couldn't completely overrule him. He could never afford to offend the civilian leaders too much because they were crucial to the village's economic survival. A gentle knock on his door interrupted him as he was lighting his pipe. He took a quick drag and yelled, "Come in." Naruto was the only visitor he had anticipated out of all the people who could have visited. Not so soon, in particular. He had come to the conclusion after the morning's outburst that the boy had obviously inherited his father's ability to suppress his emotions and his mother's temper. Two characteristics that did not mesh well. "Hey, old man. Mind if I come in?" Sarutobi pointed to his chair and nodded. He had anticipated that in order to win the boy back, he would need to make a big show of apologizing. With a grateful nod, Naruto took the offered seat slowly. Sarutobi turned to face the boy, his shoulders squared. He put his head on his palms and his elbows on his table. At ease, he gazed directly into the boy's eyes. A move that obviously made him uneasy. Naruto fidgeted a little and looked down immediately. He started to wait the boy out, not wanting to strike up a conversation. It wasn't very long. The boy said, "I'm sorry," without looking him in the eyes. "I'm sorry for the things I said today morning." Slowly, Sarutobi processed what the boy had said. That must have been difficult for him. He let out a sigh. Softly, "I'm sorry as well," he said. "After these many years in this post, I think I have lost the skill to interact with other humans effectively. At the time, my decision seemed to be the right thing to do. In hindsight, I realized that I was just simply trying to control your life. I didn't make too much of an effort to really know and understand you. I simply did what I thought was best for you. Now I can see that my actions were misguided. I wasn't the person you needed. I was simply the person I thought you needed." Halfway through his monologue, the boy's eyes had widened and he looked up. Silence descended upon them, and they kept staring at one another. "So what now?" Naruto finally questioned. "Well, there are two ways to go about this. Which are, we go our different ways and never talk to each other again. And the second? We talk and try and improve each other." "I think I prefer the second way." Sarutobi grinned. "So do I." "Who goes first? Why don't you go ahead? Why didn't you tell me about the Kyuubi?" "Because I knew that your life would be overshadowed by it and I wanted to give you at least a few years without that pressure. But the villagers ruined any chance of that. I see now that I should have told you this much sooner, but I simply did not have the heart to lay that heavy a burden on you. A mistake you should learn from. Never let your emotions cloud your judgment. And I did try to improve their treatment of you. Do not think that I didn't. The law that prevents anybody from mentioning the Kyuubi was put in place so that people could not treat you. But it is impossible to stamp out emotions such as hatred from people. Without a focus for our hatred, our emotions just begin to eat us away. I tried my best. Barring arresting every person who mistreated you, there was nothing I could have done. Naruto gave a nod. Does my answer satisfy you? Why didn't you tell me about my parents? Sarutobi held back his astonishment. It would soon be his turn. Because they had many enemies and I did not believe that a 3-year-old had the skill to keep a secret. I planned to tell you when you graduated. You may believe that to be a convenient excuse, but I have no proof to offer you and it is up to you to accept it or not. No, I believe you. Why? Naruto smiled slightly and said, because I refuse to believe that you would lie to me after all this. You're not that bad. Sarutobi laughed. My turn. Who told you about your parents and the Kyuubi? Once more, Naruto bowed his head and appeared to be deep in contemplation. When he eventually looked up, he said, do you really want to know? I'll tell you if you insist. Are you trying to protect someone? No, you just won't like the truth. I've held this position longer than you can imagine, boy. I'm used to unpleasant truths. Naruto paused for a while before nodding. The Kyuubi told me himself. He showed me how they died. Sarutobi didn't even try to conceal his astonishment this time. This had been the only answer he had not even dreamed of out of all the others. He had been mentally cross. Referencing everyone who was aware of Naruto's parents' identities and removing each one after determining how loyal they were. It was shocking to learn that the boy could talk to his Biju. Although a Jinchuriki communicating with their Biju was common, it was remarkable that they did so at such a young age, and incredibly disturbing. Ignoring the boy's perplexity, he stood up and motioned for him to hurry up. Stand up and take off your shirt. Channel some chakra for me. When the boy followed instructions, Minato's seal appeared on his stomach as clear as day. Sarutobi leaned down to examine the markings closely. Even though he was not nearly as skilled in fuinjutsu as Jiraiya, Minato, or Kushina, he possessed knowledge that was superior to that of practically the whole shinobi community. There was a reason he was called the Professor. He carefully examined it for several long minutes before concluding that the seal was completely intact. He pushed himself up and sat back in his chair, breathing a sigh of relief. He waited for the boy to return to his seat and said, the seal is still intact. You can get dressed. Tell me all, from the time you first spoke to him to now. The boy informed him. Shaking his head, he said, that was foolish. Suicidal. After Naruto had finished telling the story. Why didn't you come to me after the first time? Naruto shrugged and said, I was upset with you for not telling me yourself. Sarutobi rubbed his face and sighed. Remember Naruto, never let your emotions cloud your judgments. The sanctity of that seal is not something which just concerns you. The safety of the entire village depends on you. Do not act so rashly again. Sheepishly, Naruto muttered, then you're not going to like the next part. Sarutobi felt a growing sense of dread creep into his heart. It was not eased by hearing the remainder of the story. He slammed his hands on the table and jolted out of his chair, his rage overwhelming him. Open the seal and let him go. Are you just stupid or do you keep doing these things just to irritate me? Why not? Why not? Why not? Do you even know how much trouble that would cause? The Shodai Hokage captured all the Biju and then distributed them amongst all the villages. Do you know why? To maintain the balance of power. Losing the Kyuubi will cut back the village's power. If another village gets their hands on him, then the balance will be completely destroyed. War will almost certainly break out again. The boy's expression turned icy. He pointed to the village. You're no different than the rest of them, he said. What are you talking about? The way you talk about the Kyuubi and the rest of the Biju. You consider them to be objects of power. Objects to be used and thrown away. Just like the village thinks of me. His words were like an arrow to Sarutobi. The boy was undoubtedly smarter than he realized. He sighed and sat down once more. That is simply human nature, boy. When humans discover something they cannot understand, they do only one thing. They control it. I talk about the Biju the way I do because that was the way I was taught, and I have never encountered anything or read any literature which ever suggested that the Biju are anything but forces of destruction. And unless you have something to offer, then I'm afraid I'm not going to change my views. Didn't you hear what I said? The Kyuubi was being controlled. He didn't attack the village. Madara did. Madara, who nobody but the Kyuubi saw. How else could he have arrived in the middle of the village without anybody noticing? Without you noticing? It was hard to answer the boy's retort. He had been troubled by that question for many years. Who had breached their defenses? Who had murdered his wife, whom he loved? It must have been a Kachiyose, he had quickly concluded. No other explanation could explain why none of them had spotted a chakra as big and evil as the Kyubis. The barrier must have been broken by the summoner. Furthermore, Madara was the only Kyubi summoner in history. Sarutobi let out a sigh. While I can't disprove you, neither can you prove your theory. Why can't you trust me on this? Trust on you on the fact that the creature that almost completely destroyed my village is not a psychopathic monster of destruction and that the strongest Uchiha to have ever lived is still alive? Yes. Why do you trust him? Because I gave him the chance to kill me and escape and he didn't take it. Because he showed me my parents' last message to me. Because he told me himself that he was the one to kill my parents. Because he is a prisoner as much as I am. And because I have offered him what he wanted most. Freedom. He has no reason to lie anymore. Sarutobi fixed the boy with his gaze. The young man who was wise beyond his years. No one else carried the boy's burden. The boy with a heart full of sorrow. The boy's parents were two of the most wonderful people he had ever met. He didn't think he could change his mind about the boy's words. He chose to have faith in that boy. He hadn't done that in a long time. He had lost some of the base emotions from his years as a Hokage. It came with repeatedly sending his own people to their deaths. Additionally, he could no longer stand to fight Naruto. He finally said, "Fine," after a long moment. Even more shocked than he was by his own behavior, the boy said, "I will trust you. But know this. If we're wrong, then the lives of all the innocent lives in this village will be upon you." "I would rather die than let that happen," the boy shot back with a firm reply. "Good. That's the kind of conviction I like to see. Now about today morning. Ideally, you should be punished for your actions, but I'm letting you go this time with just a warning. A final warning. I will not tolerate any more such incidents." The boy gave a nod. "Good. This is going to cause a lot of irritation for me, but I'm willing to accept it this time. Secondly, I pronounce you to have graduated the academy as of this instant." The boy got to his feet with a mixture of shock and excitement. "Really? But how? I didn't give the rest of the tests in?" "I have spoken to Ox. You displayed exemplary levels of taijutsu and skill in ninjutsu in today's encounter. Plus, you managed to land a hit on an Anbu agent. That is proof enough of your skill. That is more than sufficient to graduate. But I only did it because he was underestimating me. That was his mistake, not yours. It takes away nothing from your feat." "Bu." Sarutobi yelled, "Do you want to graduate or not?" "I do," a startled Naruto said. "Then stop complaining and get out. I have a lot of work to do. All thanks to you. We'll talk more later." With a low bow, Naruto left the room as quickly as he could. When Naruto arrived at his apartment building, he paused at the door. Shutting his eyes, he directed chakra into his nose and ears. After obtaining what he desired, he shunned his apartment's roof. He hid in plain sight and said, "Hello, Ox.san, to the Anbu stationed there." "Yo, kid. Really sorry about today morning. I know it's not an excuse, but I had really lost my cool." "It's okay. No hard feelings. Besides, I'm the one who should be thanking you. You reminded me of the cardinal rule of combat. Do not underestimate your enemy. Now that I'm going back to active duty, it's a good thing it happened. I don't think I really want to die yet." It was a statement rather than a question, so my guard is being changed. "No, the Hokage decided that you don't need one anymore now that you're a shinobi. He told me to stay on till you apologized. Now that that's over with, my mission is done." The elderly man moved quickly. It had only been 15 minutes since he left his office. "Wait till I apologized? That manipulative old coot?" Ox laughed. "Yeah, I know. He hides it pretty well, but he sure does know how to bend people to his will." "Well then, before I go, tell me how you gave me the slip," Ox said as he stood up. "I used to create a cage bunshin in the toilet and then henge into a rat." Ox stared blankly into emptiness and said nothing. Then his head began to thud against the tree. Every time he said, "Fuck. How could I have missed something that simple?" He knocked. He halted what he was doing and started to jump away. "You owe me dinner, by the way. Your stunt has made me the laughing stock of the Anbu." With a sheepish smile, Naruto said, Sorry, I guess." "Nah, it's okay. I'm leaving the village in a couple of days anyway. These things die down pretty soon." "Wait. At least tell me your name. It's been 6 years, you know." Ox called out, "Tenzo," and leapt off. After observing him go, Naruto leapt through the window of his own apartment. He approached his bed and collapsed into it. He began to gaze at his ceiling and quickly found himself absorbed in his thoughts. His thoughts eventually became dreams. A loud knock on his door prompted him to begin. He noticed that he had been out of it for a long time when he looked up at his clock. To confirm that he was truly awake, he squeezed himself. No one had ever visited his house before, as far as he could recall. Someone with the incorrect address must be responsible. He approached the door, inhaled deeply, and opened it. On the opposite side, Shikamaru and Choji were waiting for him. Choji questioned, "Where the hell have you been for the whole day? We have been looking for you everywhere." "You have no idea how troublesome it was," Shikamaru complained. "Yes, everywhere." Naruto stood staring at them, his mouth hanging open. Shikamaru closed his mouth and extended his hand. "Mind if we come in?" With a weak nod, Naruto stepped aside to let them in. As they surveyed his disorganized living room, he gave his head a sheepish rub. His scrolls were scattered across the room. He never bothered to clean up because no one ever came to see him. After creating a few clones, Naruto started gathering them. Before a clone could seize it, Shikamaru grabbed one and opened it. His notes on the chakra restricting seal were all over it. "Naruto, what is this?" "My notes. I can see that, but what is it?" "The library doesn't let me borrow books, so I have to read the books there and take down my own notes." "So it's true then. You held yourself back in the academy. Why?" "Most of the adults already hated me. If I was the best, then I would have just drawn more attention to myself. I didn't need that. So I hid my true abilities. Besides, the Hokage has banned early graduation. I gained nothing by showing my real abilities." He handed the scroll to Naruto, who tossed it into his bedroom. "Naruto, why didn't you tell us? We're your friends after all, aren't we?" replied Choji. Naruto came to a halt and pivoted. "I've been training hard since I was 4 years old. That's the only thing I ever do in my free time. It sort of became my private life. The time where I was alone and no one else bothered me. Somehow I never felt right talking about it." "I see," Shikamaru said. "Doesn't really make sense to me, but as long as it's the truth, I don't mind. Look, I'm sorry guys. You're the first and only friends I have and I don't really know how to behave properly, you guys. Please forgive me for anything I may or may not have done." A quiet voice said, "That's the thing, Naruto, Choji. With friends, there is not proper behavior or improper behavior. Just be yourself and trust us." Naruto said, "I see," slowly, as though he was taking in the information. "Then I have something else to tell you guys. I will not judge you in any way if our friendship is over after this." It was this. He intended to inform them. Although he had anticipated this turning point eventually, the time had come for him to take action. Since he did the same thing with his friends, he could not be angry with the old man for keeping things from him. No matter who he was not going to be hypocritical. "You know that the Yondaime defeated the Kyuubi, right?" Both of them gave a nod. "He didn't actually defeat it. He sealed it away." Naruto stopped and inhaled deeply, into a newborn baby. His son. Me. Suddenly the room was filled with a heavy, tense silence. As Naruto gazed at his companions, they reciprocated. The silence started to reach Naruto as the seconds passed slowly. His heart was thumping as rapidly as it could. He pondered whether he had erred. Would he lose his only confidants? Would they not invite him to their family dinners anymore? Shikamaru let his breath out gradually. He uttered the cryptic words, "Well, that explains a lot." "Yeah," Choji nodded. "I'm hungry. Let's go have some food. Will your uncle's place be still open, Choji?" "Yeah. I'm hungry as well. Let's go." They both turned and headed toward the door. Naruto stood speechless, utterly engrossed in what his friends had done. "What are you guys doing?" "What do you mean?" Shikamaru inquired. "We're going to have dinner." "That's it? I mean, you guys are fine with it?" "Yeah," Choji replied. "Why wouldn't we be?" "You mean you're really fine with it?" Shikamaru let out a sigh. "Look, we're not idiots. We've known that there was something off about you for a long time. It didn't stop us from being friends. Now that we know why doesn't change a thing." Naruto blossomed with happiness. Naruto and his friends left his apartment with a broad smile on their faces. "Thanks guys. You have no idea how much this means to me. I hope we're all in the same team." "You graduated?" "Yup." "How?" As they walked, Naruto told them the tale. A displeased Sarutobi remarked, "You're late," as Kakashi pushed open his office window. All he got in return was a shrug. With a sigh, Sarutobi released it. For the excellent services Kakashi offered the village, it was a minor cost. Furthermore, he had essentially given up on trying to make Kakashi better. That had been acknowledged as a futile endeavor by the entire village. As he moved to the middle of the room, Kakashi questioned, "What's this about?" "Naruto. I see, you heard about yesterday?" "Yeah. Quite the act he pulled off. The folks over at Anko haven't been so gleeful about something in quite a while. I wouldn't want to be Tenzo for a while. And a gigantic pain as well. The council's been a right pain in the ass. About him graduating? Yeah, what are you going to do? He's graduating and that's that. Everything stays the same, right? Yeah, you're still getting him, and the other one as well? Yes. You're the best one to handle him. He's quite similar to the younger you, from what I hear. Not surprising, given what's happened to him. Yes. I want you to keep a good eye on him as well. I want regular reports. A team like yours doesn't come about too often. I'm more worried about the third one. You'll just have to make sure that she isn't left behind." Kakashi said, "I'll try my best," in a tone that was incredibly unconvincing. Sarutobi didn't let out a sigh. Any hint of weakness seemed to be a source of encouragement for the man. "Now for the main reason I called you here." Kakashi's eyebrow went up. "Naruto. He knows about the Kyuubi. Has known about him since he was 4. He even communicates with him. Utilizes the Kyuubi's sensing abilities." "What? That's not possible." "Well, it is. Did he tell you so?" "Yes. Just yesterday. The boy has been pulling the wool over our eyes quite well, I'll have to give him that. You know what this means, don't you?" "Not exactly. His time with you is going to have to be cut down. I'll be calling Jiraiya back quite soon." "I see. Makes sense. How much time do I have? 6 months? 7 months maybe. Don't worry. He'll still come back to your team after Jiraiya is done with him." Maybe this is a good thing. You'll have more time to devote to Sasuke." "It does seem that way. You don't seem too happy about the prospect." "Well, I definitely am not looking forward to teaching someone who was just like the younger me. Minato did, and I never heard him complain about it," Sarutobi said with a laugh. "I have nowhere near as much patience as Sensei did." Sarutobi laughed once more. "Joking aside, keep a good watch on Naruto. You see anything suspicious, come straight to me. What if the worst happens? It won't. I inspected the seal. It's fully intact. Barring an external trigger, the seal will hold for many more years." "I see. That's good to hear. Anything else I need to know?" "Iruka says the boy has trust issues and I think he may very well be correct. Be careful with how you handle him." "Understood." As Kakashi walked to the window, Sarutobi said, "Good. When are you testing them?" "Tomorrow morning." "You're in for a surprise then," Sarutobi said with a laugh. "What do you mean?" "You'll see. I don't think I will. I'll be paying a visit to Tenzo. That boy trained like a monster even when I was guarding him. Who knows what else he gets up to these days? And I don't intend to find out the hard way." Sarutobi laughed. Tenzo had just finished his late breakfast when he heard a faint knock on his window. Kakashi was the one. He wasn't shocked by it. This visit was something he had anticipated. "Taicho," he said politely as he opened his window and welcomed the shinobi with the silver hair. "It's been a while. How've you been?" "Not bad," Kakashi shrugged in response. "Vague as usual. You're never going to change, are you?" As he pulled up a chair at Tenzo's dining table, Kakashi asked, "Why fix what ain't broke?" "Naruto?" he inquired as he began to clear away his scant breakfast. "Yeah, Naruto. How did he manage a hit on you?" "Simple. I severely underestimated him. I thought I knew the limits of his abilities. Turns out the kid had managed to hide a lot from me." "Like what?" "Fudan techniques." Kakashi raised an eyebrow and said, "Really? Already?" "Seems to be. That's how he got me, and I was stupid enough to go and hold his katana. Fudan jutsu and Gai. Like speed, that's one scary kid. Yup. Who knows what else he managed to hide from me." Kakashi let out a sigh. "I'll have to go visit Gai as well. Don't forget Anko." "Anko? Anko Midarashi?" "Yes. The kid spars with her a lot." Kakashi let out another sigh. "This keeps getting better and better, doesn't it? Why are you getting so upset about it? The better he is, the less work you have to do. The better he is, the more lop-sided my team gets." "Ah," Tenzo said as insight dawned on him. "Additionally, there is that. I assume they also gave you the Uchiha." Kakashi gave nod. "He's doing well. The best of the rest, but nowhere near as good as Naruto. I could tell from my observations of him on the academy training grounds, at least. If you would like further information, speak with Kage. He has spent the last few years on the Uchiha detail." No, I'll move on. He is good, but from what I understand, not above genin level. That is, he's not another Itachi. Yes, Kakashi said, nodding. This is a positive thing. I don't think it would be wise for him to gain too much strength too quickly given his past. Tell that to the council. War is not being waged here. What we went through won't happen to the current generation anytime soon as long as Hokage Sama remains in power. I'm not aware of that. We shinobi are not helped by innocence. Simply results in our death. The sooner innocence is lost, the better. Yes. However, how early? Now look at us both. Appears to have done us little good. Tenzo laughed. Hardly a good way of judging my point, given how fucked up both our childhoods were. Can't argue with that. Kakashi laughed too, and he waved as he stood up. Thanks for the information. I had better go find Guy. The sooner I finish that, the better. That morning, Naruto was awakened by his alarm clock, which he had turned off after falling asleep so late the night before while chatting with Choji and Shikamaru. He sat up blearily and attempted to form a cage bunshin, but his chakra control was far from flawless in his disheveled state. He put his hands together, made the necessary hand sign, created the bunshin, and sent it off to the academy, but he immediately fell back into his bed and fell asleep again. Iruka, who was followed by a group of Junin, clapped his hands and called for silence as he entered the room, feeling the stifled tension and the tangible excitement of the moment. Today was the beginning of their lives as shinobi, and he hoped that he had taught them enough to ensure their survival. You are all shinobi from now on. I hope all of you become valuable shinobi to this village and wish you luck in your professional endeavors. I'll now go over each team's and instructor's name individually. When your name is called, rise and take your Junin with you. From here, they'll take care of it. You get it? Let's get started now. Naruto was late as usual, and at this rate, if that kid ever became Hokage, he was going to be late to his own appointment. Iruka looked around the classroom and suppressed a groan. He opened his list and started reciting the teams, clearing his mind of any thoughts of Naruto. He finally intoned, Team 7, Uzumaki Naruto, Sakura Haruno, and Uchiha Sasuke. He had hoped to be on a team with Shikamaru and Choji, but the odds were against him, so the clone, who was hiding in the tree outside the classroom, resisted the urge to hit something and instead made another clone and dispelled it. Naruto's sleep was interrupted once more by a burst of information, which he processed calmly, handling it far better than his bunshin. He sighed and closed his eyes once more. Kakashi stood in front of the green apartment door and sighed. He hadn't been to see Guy in a long time, actually not since his friend got his own team, and Guy had been very busy ever since he got the personal project that was Rock Lee. He knocked. His friend smiled as the door opened a moment later. After spending years with Guy, Kakashi developed stronger eardrums than most people. It's good to see you again, my youthful friend, he boomed, dismissing the boisterous greeting as he entered Guy's home. I just brewed some tea. Do you want any? Sure. Now take a seat. Kakashi followed Guy into his kitchen and leaned against one of the walls, but Guy called out, I'll be with you in a minute. How are things going? All right. Returned from an escort mission just now. Your pupil? He's made significant progress. Neji is still unbeatable, but he will eventually catch up. Is it smart to inflame internal rivalries in that way? Guy gave a shrug. I fail to see the danger. Gives them something to strive for. For us, it worked. Avoid equating us with them. We were raised during the war. We would die if we didn't improve. Everyone requires a source of inspiration. Guy handed Kakashi a cup of tea and remarked, with our way of life, it's very easy to lose sight of your path. Kakashi nodded, and Guy quickly turned away, allowing Kakashi to take a few sips of his drink before he sat down at his kitchen table with his own cup. Years of friendship and partnering had ingrained Kakashi's habits into Guy. In the heat of battle, teamwork is the only way to survive, and teamwork requires understanding your partner. I recently left Tenzo's. Did you hear? Very little, only a hazy rumor. That's what I wanted to talk to you about. What precisely? His skill levels. So you've been given him? Kakashi gave nod. That's good to hear. What are you saying? He's difficult to deal with. It wouldn't have been possible for everyone. Kakashi let out a sigh. What, if even you're saying that, then the kid must really be complicated. He isn't complex. Simply put, he was different from other people his age. It makes sense considering his background. I understand. I didn't mean to say that. Yes, I am aware. You were complaining. No more complaining, my young friend. You shouldn't have accepted a team in the first place if you were looking for a simple solution. Really, I had no say in the matter, did I? Kakashi muttered. It's accurate. There was a relaxed silence between them. All right, back to Naruto. Strike me with all your might. To be honest, I don't know the full extent of his abilities, Guy said, scratching his head. What on earth are you discussing? He was trained by you, right? I didn't actually train him. I helped him practice his taijutsu and gave him advice. It mostly happened in the mornings. For the remainder of the day, I don't know what he did. I am unable to provide you with information regarding his ninjutsu. Kakashi rubbed his face and sighed. The child has already managed to be a royal pain in the ass, and I haven't even met him yet. Go on, he gestured. Since he first met me, he has been wearing body weights. Over time, we gradually increased the weight. I think yesterday's graduation test was the first time he had taken them off in years. That's what he's told me, anyway. As a result, his speed and reaction times should outpace nearly all Chunin level shinobi and possibly even some of the slower Junin, though I can't be positive because I haven't witnessed it myself. Calmly, Kakashi took in the news, no longer shocked by anything the boy did. He has 2 katanas and is proficient with them. I have only practiced head-on combat with him in our spars, and he is quote deadly at it, but from what I understand, he does not like it. Style. He is almost ambidextrous in the way he uses both of his blades, quick and lethal. It is much more difficult to block 2 blades than 1. In my opinion, it is simple. It's very simple to counter. Yeah, but I've given him enough counters during our spars for him to have outgrown it. No longer jumps right into bonsai attacks as frequently. With a nod, Kakashi put the information away. Anything else? In terms of personality? Very patient in certain situations and extremely impatient in others. Introverted. Critical of oneself. There are many more. A person cannot be summed up in a few sentences. You will have to discover for yourself. Seems to be the case, and for once, someone's managed to pique my curiosity. Guy laughed. You and him are going to have a great time. He is a decent young man. Let's see. But there is one thing. After each training session, evaluate how well he performed. Describe his mistakes and areas for improvement. Don't do it with Naruto, even though I understand that you're the type of person who would rather let him figure it out on his own. For the sake of teamwork and other important things, do it. However, when it comes to taijutsu and ninjutsu, simply come out and let him know what's wrong. Once a mistake is pointed out to Naruto, he never makes the same one again, and if you give him advice, you can be sure he will carry it out better than you could have ever imagined. I understand. I'll have to consider this. Kakashi stood up and walked out the window, waving goodbye. Uchiha Sasuke was impatiently waiting for his Junin instructor. Although he appeared calm and collected, his mind was a raging storm of rage at being forced to wait. He was the best student in his class, but he was waiting for his mentor while all the other students had already met theirs. To make matters worse, he was unhappy with the makeup of his team, and the idea of having to spend time in close proximity to one of his most obnoxious fangirls made him shudder. That and the mystery that was Naruto. Until yesterday's events, he had never thought the blonde was worthy of his time. To begin with, he had been shocked that Naruto had been permitted to graduate because shinobi villages did not take well to attacks on comrades. Secondly, the boy's array of skills had been undeniable, and he had to accept with disgust that he might not be the most skilled of the graduating students. The speed of the fight had been too fast for him to understand, so all he could conclude was that the blonde was very good, and he intended to find out how, and then get better as quickly as he could. If someone had told him a week ago that there was someone strong in his class, he would have laughed at the idea. But here he was, a fact that made his blood boil. His brother had been in the Anbu by this age. He had been confident in his own abilities and the profiles he had created for the rest of his batch. He glanced at the clock, and he noticed that both the blonde and his instructor were over 3 hours late. He wasn't shocked by Naruto's tardiness, but he had anticipated the Junin to be on time, and the only bright spot from yesterday's events, he supposed, was that Pink wasn't trying to jump him. He became more alert when he sensed someone outside the room. The clone of Naruto also sensed the presence and dispelled it to inform his original. Once more, Naruto leapt from his bed, grabbed his weapons, and headed for his window of choice. Hitaki Kakashi walked to the room where his genin team was waiting for him, hoping they weren't too upset because, as they would soon find out, he was actually early by his standards. He stopped briefly outside the room because, in just a few seconds, he would finally meet Minato, Sensei's son in person. He had prepared by choosing his opening remarks the previous evening, so he entered the room without paying attention to the girl's outraged scream. My very first Impra. What? Naruto, where are you? He's running late. He's never on time. What absurd excuse he'll make today is beyond me, Pinky remarked. Kakashi blinked, startled. Naruto was late? Always late? Kakashi sighed, waiting on someone for the first time in a long time. Why hadn't he been informed about this specific personality trait? We'll just have to wait for him, then, won't we? With a wrinkled eye, he pulled out his Go.to pornography book and said. Sakura watched her sensei, who was undoubtedly a pervert and a strange one at that, take out a book that could easily be classified as porn and start reading it. Why did her sensei have to be a weirdo? Well, she didn't really care as long as he didn't stand in the way of her and Sasuke-kun's relationship. Her thoughts were focused only on Naruto, who had been so strong yesterday when he had attacked Sensei and the Anbu guard that she hadn't even been able to see his movements. She wasn't relishing the prospect of being paired with a psychopath, and she had been most surprised when his name had been called out, assuming that the blonde had not been allowed to graduate. It wasn't until later that she realized her teammate was just being late as usual, and she wondered what she would say to him when he eventually showed up for his scheduled appearance. 15 minutes later, Naruto entered the room wearing a sheepish look. As you can see, I discovered there was no toilet paper in the restroom. My roommate didn't get home for 3 hours. Apologies, sensei. He was also running late. He arrived just now, Sakura said contemptuously. Really? You were late, sensei. Why? Me? As you can see, I lost my way in life. That excuse blew Naruto's out of the water, and he twitched violently. It appears that he was facing a professional. Kakashi.1. Naruto.0. Shut up you mangy furball. All right, you three. On the roof. Kakashi said, now, before vanishing in a flurry of leaves. Kakashi examined the 3 genin in front of him. Sasuke appeared to have the typical elitist, snobbish Uchiha personality, which was unexpected because he had no live Uchiha nearby to influence him. If he wanted to perform well on a team, he would need to shed that attitude. He had no idea how to deal with a girl of her age, so he thought about his 3rd student. The girl appeared to be a typical fangirl, which was not surprising considering her civilian background. Most civilians either calmed down after their first mission out in the field or died. In any case, their personality issues usually sorted themselves out quite soon. He had been able to gain a good understanding of the child's abilities from his meetings with Guy and Tenzo, and based on what he had heard, he was impressed. He wasn't going to tell the child that, though, because the girl had mentioned that he was always late, and he hoped the blonde wasn't as bad as he was. He certainly didn't want a team that had 2 people who were always late, so how was that going to work out? He wondered what justification the child would make the next time. How about we each introduce ourselves? After all, we are a team now. To survive in the field, we must get to know one another very well. Sasuke.kun. Why don't you go first? Uchiha Sasuke is my name. I don't really like anything, and I have a lot of things that I don't like. Additionally, I have an ambition, but I can't really call it a dream. The killing of a certain man and the resuscitation of my clan. Kakashi held back from letting out a sigh, forgetting the child's obsession with getting even. The girl with the pink hair appeared to be swooning at the boy's words, and he wondered if it was a bad sign that he couldn't even recall her name. Next you, Pinky. The only thing he took away from her words was her name and that she was Sasuke's biggest fangirl. Forget asking Kurenai for advice. He was going to lend Pinky to Kurenai until she was completely exhausted. Kakashi fought the urge to slam his head against something. Naruto, you're up. Uzumaki Naruto is my name. I enjoy ramen. What I don't like about? Well, really, not much. My goal is to become the Hokage and have my name appear in as many bingo books as possible. I enjoy training as a hobby. Did this child mean to irritate Kakashi? He twitched. Well, I understand. It's my turn, I suppose. For the moment, you only need to know that my name is Hitaki Kakashi. Now pay attention. Although you all passed the graduation exam, there is still one more test to take. Tomorrow, I'll take one more test, and I won't consider you guys to be my team until I'm satisfied. Sakura's protests were silenced when he raised a hand. Come to training ground 17 tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Be careful not to eat breakfast. Before they could ask him any questions, Kakashi shunshined away and gave them an eye smile. He landed a few rooftops away and stopped to pull out his book, not expecting anyone to land next to him, though he was somewhat relieved to see it was Naruto. How had he caught up? I take it you're Wolf? The boy had just met Kakashi, and he was already surprising him. Aside from the one time he had saved him, he was fairly certain that the boy had never seen him, had never sensed him, and how did the boy know? Kakashi waited a few seconds before responding. Yes. Thanks for saving my life back then. Not necessary. In the first place, I wasn't meant to allow you to suffer harm. They both clearly avoided looking at one another, and there was an awkward silence between them. How did you make your guess? The hair. Kakashi took in the information and put it away for later use. Naruto could only have seen a glimpse of him, and the boy had been in a lot of pain at the time, so it was highly unlikely that he was able to identify him by his hair. Either the child was very smart, or he was lying to hide the fact that he had used the Kyuubi's sensing abilities to identify him, and if he was, the lie had been brilliant. If not, anyone else would have taken it at face value without question. Of course, others were not as paranoid as he was. You were a pupil of my father, were you not? One thing was certain, though, if he didn't fully understand Naruto's powers soon, his paranoia would kill him. The Kyuubi could not have told him this, or could it have? He had spent a lot of time with Kushina-san and Minato. Sensei. Had the Kyuubi watched their interactions? Or, more accurately, was it watching their conversation at the moment? Yes. Can you describe him to me? Although I've read a lot of books about him, I'm still curious about his true character. Did you also know my mom? Despite my best efforts, I was unable to locate any information about her. Yes, your mother was someone I knew. I will tell you about them, but not right now. We'll see after I pass my test tomorrow. Naruto gave a snort. What? Everyone in the village will be after your head if you fail the final Uchiha. The exam is a joke. Kakashi twitched, reluctantly confessing, Kakashi.1, Naruto.1. He shunned away without responding. The blonde wasn't in the Forest of Death or any of the other training grounds, and he hadn't been at Ichiraku either. When she tried to find the kid, she couldn't get inside and wait for him because he had put up some kind of seal that was keeping her out. A powerful enough attack should have been able to get through, but she didn't intend to destroy the building from the backlash, so she stomped out of the building to try the window, knowing that if Naruto had sealed that too, she would kill him. She jumped up to the branch just as her object of attention turned up there, and she snarled. She spent hours practicing his skills, and he went ahead and attacked a comrade without the child knowing what he had done. He gasped, nay, and she threw him onto the branch, slapping him hard on the head just to be safe. What the devil? He strained to breathe and rubbed his throat before wheezing out. You idiot, are you aware of what you've done? What? It's a useless piece of garbage. This is how you repay me for all the time I've spent helping you. She put her hands on her hips and glared down at him as she asked. What are you discussing? You attacked an academy teacher. With a tone of realization, Naruto said, oh yes, that did happen. Before he could finish speaking, a real rocket struck his stomach, flung him back violently, and slammed him hard against the building across the street. He groaned as he hit the ground. The wind completely knocked him out. Naruto muttered, that was uncalled for, while lying prone. It wasn't. As she stood above him and glared down, she threatened Anko, who was already in a bad position in the village and planned to make her point with extreme force, if necessary, because she had invested time in his training and any wrongdoing on his part would reflect poorly on her. No, I apologize. I apologize. I was worthy. Naruto begged, please. Feeling that her message had been understood, she knelt down next to her Proto copyright ga copyright. You need to be more careful, kid, she said softly, waving her arm. You and I can't give them more opportunities, she said, adding that, these people are always after our blood. Look, even though you were probably provoked, that doesn't give you the right to act in such a way. What you did was grave. The child slowly sat up and gave her a close inspection. I understand. I apologize. I shouldn't have allowed him to irritate me. All right. So long as you understand that. When did you start being kind and helpful? Naruto smiled. This is serious, brat. I will only say this once, you see. You've succeeded in infiltrating my life. Now, stop wasting your time and energy on pointless things. The brat appeared in disbelief. Anko. Nissan, wow. You do have a heart, after all. You seem to be motivated only by resentment. She punched him again and trusted the kid to screw it up. You need to stop taking stupid risks, kid. That's rich coming from you. That's what matters. You really ought to switch it up if I'm the one saying it. Calm down. I may come across as insane, but the majority of my actions are planned. That's there, but every once in a while you, quite literally, seem to lose it. The child looked sheepish with grace. Yeah, that is present. Haha. Anko sighed. Nothing would change the fact that the brat did exactly what he wanted to do and would not listen to her. The following morning, Sakura watched Sasuke lean against one of the 3 stumps in the training ground while they waited for their teammates, both of whom were now more than 2 hours late. She thought about approaching him again but decided against it because he had pushed her away quite viciously the first 2 times. When Kakashi and Naruto arrived at the same time, she began to think about Naruto again, wondering how a boy who had been dead last every year could fight so well when she had been at the top of her class and couldn't even come close. She concluded that his fight with the Anbu must have been an anomaly. "You're running late," she yelled. Moaned Sasuke. "I apologize. On the way, I ran into Naruto. We both lost track of time when we started talking." "I apologize. On the way, I ran into Sensei. We both lost track of time when we started talking." Both of them glared at each other as soon as they finished speaking, and Sakura's perspiration fell. They must have staged that. It couldn't have happened naturally. Moaned Sasuke. With his 3 students huddled in a small semicircle around him, Kakashi walked over and leaned against the middle stump, took an alarm clock out of one of his pockets, set it on the stump to his right, and turned it on. "Now let's talk about your test. As you can see, I have only 2 bells, so only 2 of you will pass," Kakashi said, holding up a pair of bells. "You must get these bells from me before 12 or else you fail. The third will have to watch us eat lunch while he is bound to the stump over there." Sakura's and Sasuke's stomachs rumbled as if on cue, and Kakashi sighed as he turned to face Naruto. "You had breakfast, didn't you?" Naruto gave a sheepish smile and nodded. Kakashi let out a sigh. Now he was powerless to do anything. In any case, the breakfast incident had simply been his inner sadist. To prove a point, he pondered whether he could fail them. He let out a sigh. If he did that, the Hokage would murder him. He walked to the middle of the ground and shook his head. "Anyway, the person who doesn't take a bell from me will also be sent back to the academy for another year. Come at me with the intent to kill or you will never be able to get a bell. Don't worry, I'm a Junin. I can take it. Besides a couple of cute kids like you will never be able to get a hit on me anyway," he said while reaching for his trusted pornographic book. He started reading after turning the pages to one of his favorite passages. "Now, we begin at the count of 3, he said without raising his gaze. Hold on, Naruto interrupted. "What?" Kakashi inquired. "That's your test. What? Taking the bells from you?" "Yes. Really? You have a problem with that?" Naruto's voice trailed off as he asked, "Well yeah. Do I really have to, you know?" He indicated his teammates with an airy wave of his hand to make his point. Kakashi was impressed. The child had discovered his test. That or someone had warned him in advance. Guy couldn't have done it. He would never act in such a manner. Furthermore, he doubted that Anko was even aware of his strategy. By any measure, they were not close friends. He gave a shrug. With a sigh, Naruto started muttering complaints. He turned to his teammates and said, "Come on you two, we have a lot to talk about." "Fine," he sighed. Sasuke said, "There is nothing I wish to talk to you about," with a good deal of animosity. "See," Naruto said, turning back to face him, "they have no desire to." Kakashi shrugged again, not intending to make it easy for the child, but the test was now just a formality, and the bell test's basic premise was that the students wouldn't be able to figure it out, so the only good he could see in this turn of events was that it would be a good way for him to test out their combat skills. "I've figured out his test, you see. This bluff is double. We must communicate or else we will fail." "What needs to be figured out? Pass the test and take the bells," Sasuke said. Naruto pleaded, "He's trying to trick us. What makes Sensei try to deceive us?" Sakura inquired. "Yes, Naruto. How would I benefit from deceiving you?" Kakashi, noticing that the boy's patience was waning, interrupted, "I'm even hurt that you'd accuse me so. He is a shinobi. Not to mention a Junin. If he wasn't attempting to deceive us, I would be shocked. There's a chance that this test is a triple bluff, and we're currently falling into his trap." "In that case, it's best if we don't listen to you," Sasuke replied. "No," Naruto sighed. "The best course of action would be for you to hear me out before making your own decision. We're in serious trouble if this test turns out to be a double bluff. In addition, what are you losing by listening? Go ahead and attack him the way you plan to if you think I'm a bunch of bullshit." The Uchiha shrugged, and Naruto nodded before leading them into the trees. Sasuke stared at Naruto in silence, and Kakashi could see that the blonde had apparently persuaded the Uchiha that Sakura was most likely just going to follow his instructions. Kakashi sighed as he looked at his new team and realized that there was no turning back now that they had even passed his test, albeit with Naruto's help. It seemed that his days of tranquility were coming to an end. As far as he could tell, their sensei was still back on the training ground. Naruto led his teammates into the forest and walked for a few minutes because he wanted to make sure he was out of Kakashi's earshot and because he didn't rule out the Junin trying to eavesdrop on them. He strained both of his senses to the limit and forced chakra to his nose and ears. He spun around and turned to face his teammates. They would need to be a cohesive team if they were to survive in the field, and they needed to bond. Despite his dislike, he reasoned that he should at least give them a chance. Getting straight to the point, he started, "The test is a double bluff, or at least that's what I believe. If you agree with me, let me know. 3 raw genin can't possibly compete against a Junin. Particularly one that is alert. That is not possible in any way whatsoever. Not even in theory. It makes no difference how gifted the genin are. He is aware of that. To put it another way, this test was designed with the understanding that the examinees would not be able to complete the task. Put differently, there's a trick out there." Sasuke interrupted, "Not if he didn't intend to pass us in the first place." "Irrelevant," said Naruto. "There's no use trying a direct attack if that's the case. He desires that we do that." Sasuke concurred. "All right. Let us continue to assume that we are able to pass the test. Otherwise, our presence is pointless. We could just as well head home. Then, as I mentioned earlier, there is a secret. The bells, I believe." "How about them?" Sakura inquired inquisitively. "There are only 2 of them," Naruto said with a victorious tone. "How about it? Only 2 of us will be able to pass." "No, that's the problem. Do you know what a 3-man team is? Every team is required to have 4 members, according to the village regulations. Not any more. Not any less. For them to pass just 2 of us is illogical. They might allocate us later. I don't believe so. That isn't wasteful. Comparatively speaking to the other options, the likelihood that the number of individuals who pass the test will be a multiple of 3 is lower. Additionally, a team with experience cannot be given a raw genin. Likewise, they are unable to pair a team with raw genin with an experienced shinobi. Waste of resources and people. The fact that there are only 2 bells, in my opinion, is meant to turn us against one another, which is the most serious offense a shinobi can commit." Sasuke scoffed and said, "Bit rich coming from you." "That may be so," Naruto retorted, dismissing the jab. "But isn't that the point? They want us to collaborate with one another. This is a test of how well we work together. I don't think he'll pass us if we work independently and somehow get the bells. Recall how much nonsense they said about teamwork in the academy. In the graduation test, they evaluated our taijutsu and ninjutsu, but not this. Why invest so much time and energy into a single idea and then never test it?" Naruto hurriedly asked. Sakura had a doubtful expression. Sasuke sighed. "Though it hurts me to admit it, but I have to agree with the Dobi." "What was the name you gave me?" Naruto snarled menacingly. "You heard me," Sasuke said, refusing to back down. "I can tolerate insults from strangers, adversaries, and people I respect without caring. However, from you? No." He placed his right hand on the katana's hilt, a motion that both Sakura and Sasuke noticed and that made Sakura uncomfortably anxious while also thrilling Sasuke. All right. Here, we don't seem to be getting along so well," a mocking voice said. That was their only warning before 3 piercing kunai approached them with lethal accuracy. Sasuke instinctively leapt to the right, but Sakura was not as quick. Startled by the unexpected attack, she was staring blankly at the approaching weapon. He reached out and grabbed her by the back of her clothing, yanking her back as hard as she could. She was brought to her senses and pushed herself out of the way, while the weapons aimed at him and Sakura thudded harmlessly into the ground. Naruto, on the other hand, was not so fortunate. Sakura screamed in horror as the kunai plopped softly into his forehead, causing Sasuke's heartbeat to quicken. Their teacher had just killed Naruto. Naruto vanished into a cloud of smoke with a soft pop, and he heard the metallic clang of weapons clashing above them. He looked up and saw Kakashi and Naruto straining against each other, Kakashi using a kunai and Naruto using one of his katanas. In reality, it was just Naruto straining himself, and Kakashi was easily matching his strength. He must have pulled off a bunshin, and he had no idea how he'd done it. He hadn't noticed Kakashi coming and hadn't had the time to react the way Naruto had, and that annoyed him. Naruto growled, "You're going to have to do better than to sneak up on me. You should also understand that you're not very good at being strong, at least not at this moment." "Oh, don't be concerned. I am certain of that. Especially when I'm carrying these weights. All I'm doing is keeping you in place." Another Naruto, as silent as a ghost, suddenly materialized on the branch above them and swooped down on Kakashi with his blade out. When the second Naruto landed lightly on the branch, Kakashi easily retreated and evaded the attack. The two Narutos attacked Kakashi together. Kakashi already knew that the first one had been the real Naruto, so there was no point in the two of them attacking. In fact, Kakashi hadn't even needed to avoid the airborne assault. "Stupid move," smirked Sasuke. Two metallic clangs sounded as Kakashi blocked two blades. That they were solid clones was something he had not anticipated, and Naruto was making him angrier by the second. "I wanted to surprise the three of you because he had figured out my test." As he attacked the two Narutos, Kakashi remarked languidly, "Ambushes are quite the norm when you're out in the field." Another voice behind them added, "Ambushes are also generally conducted by more than one person as well." Sakura wasn't so fortunate. The punch caught her square on her face and instantly knocked her out. Sasuke spun around as quickly as he could, and two Kakashis were behind them, one for each of them. A punch came hurtling at him, and he quickly leaned back as far as he could and let it fly over him. He leant forward and sent a punch down the same way Kakashi had sent his, and Kakashi easily grabbed his fist, holding him in place with his superior strength, and then he produced a kunai in his other hand and slashed at Sasuke, who used a hand pivot to spin vertically and avoid the slash, then used his momentum to aim a kick at Kakashi's neck, certain that it would land, with no time or space for the Junin to move. The world turned black at that point. As the first clone's fist struck Sasuke's head, knocking him unconscious, the second clone stood looking at him. He muttered, "That was pretty underwhelming." Gazing down at their teammates from the top of the tree, Naruto and the original Kakashi said, "Yeah. What comes next?" After a few seconds of silence, Naruto asked. Kakashi gave him a look and arched an eyebrow. Sakura was tied to a stump, so it was not surprising that she was immobile when she woke up. She looked to her left and saw that Sasuke was suffering a similar fate. In front of them stood Kakashi, who had a very disapproving expression on his face, and Naruto. "That was really pitiful. I'm not sure what they taught you at the academy, but if you don't get better, you two won't be around for very long. The world of shinobi is extremely harsh and cruel. It's best to quit early if you're not cut out for it. Doing something you don't want to do will not end in death." Her partner in crime appeared to be simply boiling with rage, and as she watched, Sasuke let out a guttural growl and began the long and agonizing process of freeing himself. He took out his book and began walking back to the village with Naruto, ignoring her pleas to free them. "Well, you are aware that you ruined my bell test completely, aren't you?" Kakashi point 1, Naruto point 2, Naruto told himself. "Get moving, I used my head, and you can't blame me for that." "Well, I don't really blame you, but you could have played along a bit." "How? I'm not sure. You might have given them an opportunity to solve it as well." "Oh, hurry up. You can't blame me for that. I'm not angry with you about it. I'm merely saying, you are aware. You guys really need to get better at working together, don't you?" "You got that right. You must give them an opportunity. You've already written them off, as I can see." "Not at all. If I had, I wouldn't have bothered to explain everything to them." "Well, that's good. To survive, you must have a close relationship with your allies." "I'll try. Well, I can't really ask for more." As they approached the village, Kakashi looked down at Naruto and said, "Please tell me that you still don't sustain yourself on ramen." A friendly silence fell between them. "What? Why is ramen so bad? It's not healthy for you." "Can't afford anything else. Now that you will be doing missions, I hope that you will start eating other stuff as well." "Maybe." This child was as annoying as his mother, and Kakashi twitched. "Come on. I'll tell you a little about your parents in exchange for your treat." The following day, traitor. As retaliation, Kakashi ignored the charge that Naruto had thrown at him and went on reading his book. Team 7 was now in the mission assignment room, receiving their first mission. "You want a dog to be walked? Are you all insane? For the past 7 years, I haven't trained for walking a dog for 16 hours every day. Gigi, give me something else." His genin teammates were taken aback by this declaration, which was nothing new to the Sandame, Iruka, and Kakashi. In his mouth, the Sandame moved the pipe. A genin team isn't allowed to take anything higher than D ranks, Naruto. If your sensei thinks you're ready and you've earned the necessary number of D ranks, you might be granted a C rank. How many? Well, at least 20. 20 cage bunchins appeared around Naruto. Kakashi suppressed his astonishment. It was an incredible accomplishment in and of itself that a genin could execute the cage bunchin, and here he was, a genin producing 20 of Tama, a jutsu that he was certain was illegal in Konoha. "I want 20 of those. I'll finish them in an hour." Sarutobi furiously rubbed his face. D. Ranks are supposed to be a team. Building activity, Naruto. Furthermore, your sensei has not declared that you are prepared for a mission with a higher ranking. They need to work on their teamwork, Naruto said, turning around and glaring at Kakashi, who was looking up languidly from his book. Yesterday was pretty bad. I want to know who taught you that jutsu more than anything else. The Taju Kage Bunshin technique is prohibited. The child's expression changed from one of anger to one of sheepishness, and his clones vanished in smoke clouds. He was clearly aware that he had made a mistake and allowed his emotions to control him, which Kakashi noted and could be his team's downfall on a mission. All right? He asked when he didn't hear back from the blonde. The Sandame interrupted. I taught him, and Kakashi raised an eyebrow, turning back to his leader, which was obviously a cover-up. He kept asking me for a technique, so I gave it to him. I thought that increasing his chances of surviving a mission would be very helpful. Furthermore, because it can result in extreme chakra exhaustion, the technique is prohibited. I assumed we could avoid that specific bullet because of Naruto's reserves. As it happened, I was correct. No foul, no harm. Kakashi shrugged. If the Hokage was okay with it, then who was he to question it? It was a heroic attempt at a cover-up by a master manipulator, but it was too little, too late. Kakashi grinned. Naruto point 2, Kakashi point 2. A look of dejected acceptance appeared on Naruto's face. He complained, all right, I'll take your fucking dog for a walk. Naruto. Language. Sarutobi snarled. Cleaning the warehouse, you? Dog walking. Bummer. Shika, hurry up, it wasn't that horrible, Choji apologized. They were currently killing time at Shikamaru's favorite cloud, watching Spot until it was time for dinner at Choji's place. It was for me, growled Naruto, glaring at the pristine cloud that was floating by him, as if it was the cause of his blighted fate. They tell me to walk a dog after I've been working my fucking ass all this time? This village is insane? My father informed me of this. According to him, D ranks are crucial to our village's economy. Accounts for roughly 30% of our earnings, Choji stated. Is it? Naruto sarcastically snorted. Yes. It's true what Choji says. Something like that was said by my father some time ago. It's also customary to irritate the new kids on the block, give them dreary jobs. Yes, I understand. All the nonsense aside, it's important. Doesn't improve the situation. You're correct. The warehouse was extremely filthy. Shikamaru drew lead. That clearly meant Ino fucked right off. Left everything to me and Choji. HMPH, Naruto laughed. How is she doing? As obnoxious as ever. It sounds as though she was sent down specifically to irritate me with her voice. She wasn't stopped by your sensei. Who? Asuma. He's really laid back. He simply let her go and scratched his head. If his voice were on fire, that guy wouldn't move. Naruto shot back. Seems like the perfect fit for you, and Choji, who was standing on the right of the trio, laughed. So, what's he like? Your sensei. I never saw much of him. As far as I could tell, he had some beef with the old man. Seems like an okay guy. Too early to say more. Naruto said, nodding. Mine is completely crazy. Choji laughed and said, that suits you as well, doesn't it? Let's hope it does. He was my dad's student. Really? Choji questioned incredulously. That ought to be interesting for you. I certainly hope so, Naruto concurred. After 2 days. An urgent knock on Anko's door caused her to look up from her dinner. She smirked as she stood up and went to open her door. She was fully aware of who it would be and what it would be about. Calmly, she opened the door and caught the fist that was flying at her. With innocent innocence, she inquired, what's wrong, Naruto? Naruto barged in and yelled, you lied to me. You said D ranks would be fun. That I would get to learn a lot. Bullshit. I have been walking dogs and painting fences for 2 bloody days, he complained. Oh. You're so cute when you're angry, Naruto.kun. Let Anko. Ni-chan take care of you. She approached, lifted Naruto, and pressed him against her chest while grinning broadly. Naruto yelled, let go of me, you crazy bitch, as her possessions muffled his voice. She let him fall to the ground and snarled, what did you say? When Naruto realized his error, fear filled his face and he began to back away. I said you were very nice, he said, apologizing with his hands. Nothing. As he watched Anko beat up his container for the umpteenth time, Kurama let out a deep sigh and shook his head in shock. When would the child learn not to suck crazy women? Crazy snake woman. 31. Naruto. 0. After 2 days. Guy kept performing push-ups while Naruto and Lee lay on the ground, panting. Good work, the two of you. Especially you, Lee. You are now able to keep up with both Naruto-kun and myself. At least for short periods. Good work. May you blaze with the fires of youth. Guy. Sensei, Lee exclaimed, his eyes welling with tears. With a grimace, Naruto observed the two of them embrace. A picture of the sun sinking into the sea bloomed behind them as they both exploded into flames as they embraced. Even though Naruto had been seeing the sunset of youth for over a year, he still struggled to control his breakfast. He tried to divert their attention by asking, "Where's Tenten and Neji?" Naruto had trained frequently with his team because of Guy. When it worked and they released their embrace, he thanked Kami. "I heard that Hitaki Kakashi is your new team leader. Naruto-kun, that reminds me. We're meeting them in Training Ground 5 in an hour." "Yeah, he said he knows you." "Gosh, I have my very own eternal rival, Hitaki Kakashi," Guy told him loudly. "Gosh. Guy. Sensei. This is incredible. The same team includes both of our eternal rivals. So young," with tears in his eyes, Lee yelled once more. "Hey Lee." With his arms extended to embrace his cherished pupil, Guy exclaimed. "Guy. Sensei," Lee yelled, returning his teacher's motion. Naruto left as quickly as he could because he knew that seeing any more young people would force him to commit suicide. The following day, with all the disgust he could contain, Sasuke glared at the creature before him. "Moo." The cow said. Sasuke's scowl faded. "Do I have to, sensei?" he pleaded. "Well, if you can't even finish D ranks, what sort of shinobi do you want to become?" From his cozy spot atop a tree, Kakashi called out, "Look at Naruto, he has already started." Sasuke looked to his right, where Sakura was looking with equal disgust at the cow that had been assigned to her, while Naruto had started milking his with a grim, determined expression on his face. With a sigh, Sasuke rolled up his sleeves, realizing that his shinobi career had not begun as he had hoped. Several hours later after their mission, Team 7 left the Hokage's office in a rather muddy and very irate state. "Well, didn't that go smoothly?" Kakashi said with a smile. Sakura joined him, but Naruto seemed too depressed to care. Sasuke's head snapped up, and he glared at the pitiful excuse for a Junin that had been assigned to him. "I'm going." The blonde turned and waved, "See ya." "It's been nearly a week since we started performing D ranks." "Not so fast, Naruto," called Kakashi. "The team, in my opinion, knows one another well enough." That was a complete lie. Since that terrible event in the forest, which Sasuke desperately wanted to forget, the three of them had hardly spoken to one another. He had never been so humiliated in his life as when he was shown up by Naruto and tied to a stump alongside people like Sakura. He would live with nightmares about it for the rest of his life. "I believe we ought to have a training session. We must define attack patterns and team roles. What to do in the event of an ambush, etc. You guys must have a realistic assessment of me and each other in order to do that. The instinct for combat is very strong. You won't survive for long if you don't know what your teammate will do. Come with me." Sasuke's spirits lifted. At last, something practical. They went to the same training ground as Kakashi. The three students were back at the training ground they had used a few days before, and Kakashi gazed at them impassively. Regardless of his perspective, this was not going to work out because Sakura was a complete mess, Sasuke was overconfident, and Naruto believed he was good at things that were not going to mix well. Suppressing a sigh, he decided that he had already postponed it long enough and that the sooner he dealt with their inevitable fallout, the better. "All right. Taijutsu. It's the most crucial ability you guys should possess, in my opinion. Even though you might not enjoy it, it's a necessary skill. You can never predict how a battle will turn out. The enemy will undoubtedly find a way to get in your face if you are a long-range specialist. Being a well-rounded person is always better. Increases your chances of living a little while longer. Last time, I had an opportunity to give you guys a try, but it wasn't enough. If I have any chance of keeping you safe out there, I need to know what you guys can do." "First Sakura," said Kakashi before pausing. Try as he might, he couldn't think of a single nice way to say this. He shrugged. He wasn't known for his niceness anyway. "Well, simply put, you're awful." She didn't take it well, as he had anticipated. When she heard his words, her face first widened in shock, and then she hung her head in despair. They tended to overreact to the slightest criticism, which is why Kakashi detested children. He sighed. His criticism had been slightly harsher than usual, but still. "Look, I won't hold back when I say this. As your Junin sensei, It is my responsibility to teach you how to be a proficient shinobi for this community. Making sure you guys survive in the field is another aspect of my job. Sakura, I saw your scores. You only received your diploma from the academy based on your ninjutsu and theoretical scores. On every practical test, you received extremely low scores. Shinobi life is not a test in the classroom. It's true. You die if you're not ready. I feel like you're not taking this seriously for some reason. If not, I advise you to give up right away. There's no reason to put your life in unnecessary danger. I advise you to buckle up if you wish to go on. This will not be a simple task. He thought it was a good sign that she was listening, even though she was staring at him with her mouth open. However, your scores also show that you have outstanding chakra control, which is a great ability for a shinobi to possess. You can pursue genjutsu or even the healing arts if you put in the necessary effort. Now that he understood the Hokage's feelings, Kakashi held back from letting out another sigh when he said, just add a compliment at the end, and she was going to listen to every single thing he said. Her expression was lifted by the compliment he had given her. You two, on the other hand, he added, looking at his other two pupils, you two did not perform too poorly the other day and you do appear to have some potential. However, he caught their attention by saying, the village formed this team and assigned me to it so that I could shape you into a valuable resource. I'm not merely here to support and encourage you in your individual endeavors. You guys should be here because you want to protect this village, and I'm here to do what the village asks of me. I'm telling you right now that we have a problem if you're here for another reason. You get it? His remarks were obviously more aimed at one of the two than the other, and based on what he could see, Sasuke wasn't responding well to them. Nevertheless, it was too soon to pass judgment, so he had to give the boy some time. In return, he got two nods, one very glum and the other a little bored. All right. After we reach our allotted number of D ranks, we will meet here daily. I will be teaching you team formations and tactics. Additionally, I will train you in areas that I believe are critical to survival and in which you are deficient. Do I understand correctly? Everybody was nodding. All right. It's time to get into a fight. Naruto versus Sasuke. Just taijutsu. Naruto, that means no swords. I'm going to watch with Sakura. It was obvious that Sasuke was too excited for him. You two are comrades engaged in a friendly spar. As he and Sakura moved back to make space for the two genin, he called, keep it clean. This isn't going to end well, Kakashi thought. Sasuke assumed a fighting stance and glared at Naruto, but the idiot just stood there, his hands in his pockets. He assumed that the blonde was either not paying attention to him or was luring him, but it was more likely the latter. As he assumed a fighting stance, he recalled Naruto's battle with the Anbu, where he had most likely used a shunshin. Kakashi had insisted that this fight was limited to taijutsu, which meant that he was unable to use the speed he had displayed earlier, so it was a level playing field. From the brief moments of action he had seen from Naruto, he had observed that the blonde appeared to favor his right. Sasuke gradually started to circle to the left, but Naruto remained motionless. Sasuke kept circling him until he was nearly at his blind spot, and then in a flash, he sped into action, slipping into Naruto's blind spot and charging. He feinted with his left hand, aiming for the blonde's liver with his right. In a moment, he was within striking distance, and a sense of victory blossomed in his mind. However, it was too late for Naruto to respond. A second later, he came to the realization that he had called that too early. His eyes widened as Naruto started to move, and he watched in slow motion as his opponent moved at a speed far faster than his own. Naruto sidestepped his attack and launched a perfectly timed counterattack, one that would use all of his momentum against him, forcing him to take the blow. Sasuke braced himself, tightening his neck muscles and gritting his teeth, and he planned his next move. He never had a chance. Naruto's blow struck him like a pack of raging elephants, and Sakura let out a startled cry. His neck snapped violently back, and he felt himself flung back, bouncing and rolling over on the ground several times before landing 20 feet away from where he had been just a few seconds before. Sakura was on him in an instant, and he lay there, staring up at the sky blankly, all coherent thought pushed out of his mind, his head feeling as though it had broken into a million pieces. Sasuke-kun, are you alright? She sobbed as she knelt down to look at his face. He didn't need Sakura to worry about him, so he pushed her away with a disgusted expression and slowly forced himself to sit up, a task made more difficult by the fact that his body didn't seem to be listening to Hima as her voice cut through the fog of pain and brought his thoughts back to reality. Sakura took hold of his shoulder and assisted him in standing up. You alright? As he and Naruto approached, Kakashi asked. Slowly, Sasuke nodded. He turned to Naruto and said, good, adding, You're going to take off your weights for every training session after this. You cannot use a misdirected blow to kill your teammates. This one was already awful enough. I sincerely apologize, man, Naruto said, adding that this was the only time he had ever sparred with Guy. Sensei. I've never been able to hit him properly, didn't know. As he listened to the blonde's voice, Sasuke added up the dots in his mind. Naruto was using body weights, which is why his blows had such force. How could the blonde be so quick even with the weights strapped on? He pushed himself off the ground and attempted to assume a fighting stance, growling in rage. What are you doing, man? Naruto inquired. Stop talking and fight. I'm not finished. No, you're not even capable of standing up straight. Avoid telling me what I am and am not able to do. Fight for your life. There was silence in the clearing. Look, man, you're going to have to deal with it if you're upset about me being superior to you. I've put a lot of effort into getting here, and I won't put myself at your level just because your pride won't allow it. Something broke inside of him, and he rushed forward, launching a vicious jab at the blonde, but Kakashi intervened and grabbed his fist before his attack could reach the ground. Calm down, Sasuke, he said gravely, citing Shinobi Rule 7. A shinobi must never allow his feelings to control him. Sasuke, Naruto is correct. This spar is meant to gauge each other's skill levels. Ego has no place there. Without saying a word, Sasuke whirled around and stalked away after glaring up at his Junin sensei and pulling his hand back. As the Uchiha rushed away, Kakashi shook his head. You two are dismissed, he informed Naruto and Sasuke. I'll see you after tomorrow. At the same moment, same location. He began by waving goodbye to his misbehaving pupil, and after a few minutes, he gradually picked up speed and caught up to Sasuke. Sasuke, he called as he came within earshot, and his student just sped up in response. The only bright spot he could think of was that he hadn't started running. He teleported himself in front of his student with a shunshin. Kakashi did not strike himself, but Sasuke halted and gave him a defiant glare. Hey, youngster. You really must mature. Your current behavior will not serve you well in the long run. It's imperative that you let go of all your anger. Fuck you. The Uchiha snarled. For once, will you stop behaving like such a spoiled brat? It should come as no surprise that the last statement was poorly received. Sasuke snarled, I am not acting like a spoiled brat. Kakashi stifled his annoyance. This was not how he was going to communicate with the child. Will you please relax? Here, I'm attempting to have a polite discussion. You have been behaving haughtily toward your teammates and have rejected any efforts to enhance your collaboration. Being Uchiha does not automatically make you superior to them. Do not compare me that weak girl and that dead last IDI. Well, don't deceive yourself. Naruto is currently far ahead of you, as you and I both know. But that doesn't mean you should be angry with him. He has put in a great deal of effort to reach his current position. A lot more than you do. Sasuke did not respond. Look, allow me to explain. You are a Konoha shinobi. All of this. Me. The academy. We are not here merely to fulfill your desire for vengeance. We are here to teach you how to be a Konoha shinobi. For the benefit of the village. The shinobi life is not for you if you don't care about that. You have no idea what it feels to lose what I have. Kakashi yelled, listen, you self-centered idiot, you aren't the only person in this world to have lost someone. Everyone who held significance for me is dead as a result of my mistakes. I am the most knowledgeable person about retaliation. Revenge kills you from the inside out and eats away at your soul. Death cannot be stopped. The pain won't go away even if you are successful in killing Itachi. The deceased are still dead. You're implying that I ought to release Itachi? No, if you want to, go after him. Not for retaliation, though. Seek justice by pursuing him. Track him down as a Konoha shinobi. Justice for everyone he killed. You need the help of your comrades to accomplish that. You will become no better than Itachi if you continue on your current course. After a month, Kakashi watched his team as they entered the mission assignment room once more, but he couldn't even call them a team because they had all worked out his orders in a sullen and obedient silence without exchanging words. In fact, Sakura appeared to be the most upbeat of the three, having made significant strides in her taijutsu, and the standoff between Naruto and Sasuke didn't seem to have cooled off at all. He wasn't bothering Sasuke in any way, and the three of them were just robotically going through the motions of being a team. Sakura appeared to be too scared of both Naruto and Sasuke to speak to either of them. He was certain of one thing, though. Naruto would blow up if he took another D rank. His expression after the last D rank made it obvious that he had thought about the situation. So here he was, taking a C rank even though his team wasn't really prepared for it, and his only hope was that they worked things out after a difficult situation in the field.
So that's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe to the channel for more awesome stories like this. Thank you. See you all in my next video.